Welcome to Things You Didn't Ask For and Didn't Need to Know, the show where we discuss random stuff that we find interesting before deep diving into our main topic, which this week is UFOs.
Dun, dun,
I'm Mart.
I'm Donald.
And I'm Barry.
So before we start, I'm just going to remind you all, if you do like the show, hell, even if you don't, click like, click subscribe, ring that bell if you're on YouTube, make sure you're subscribed on whatever platform you're listening to this on, and what I definitely really want people to do, and we don't get a lot of it, comment on the videos. I know you probably have to go over to YouTube if you're on Spotify or something, but we'd always be interested to hear what you say. We do read the comments. I'd be curious just to get your take on all the various topics of the day that we talk about. So, I guess we'll start with Barry as always.
Okay.
Barry, what have you got for us today?
All right. So I was looking up some stuff and I came across these the most expensive things in the world. And I just thought, yes, that is interesting to me. Nobody asked for it. Nobody needs to know it. But here we go. At number 10 is Garçon à la pipe, I think. Or
What is it? Are these the most expensive things in the world?
Things in the world.
Oh,
most
so
expensive
not the
things,
most
yeah.
expensive liquids, because I was going to say, I know
we
what that
did,
is.
We did the liquids.
Yeah.
These are just things. So the painting by Picasso called Garçon à la pipe, which is worth 104 million. And these are in dollars. I didn't bother doing conversions. So,
I'm going to go on a side rant.
yeah, go ahead.
Paintings being expensive.
I mean, it's insane. It's insane. Like, for example, Lars Ulrich, the drummer of Metallica, makes t-shirt I'm wearing this evening, makes more money from art than he does from. Well, maybe not as more than he does, but he makes a hell of a lot of money from art, speculating. He buys art, hangs it in his house, all that kind of stuff, collects it, and then sells it at a massive profit sometime later.
But I think what I really mean is, let's say, how much did you say that painting?
104.
Right, $104 million, right?
Yeah.
Let's say some other artist made a painting and sold it for $100. Is that painting a million times better than the painting that some random artist made? Now, I know there's imbued value and perceived value and all this kind of stuff, but or it's a big scam.
A lot of it is a scam for 100%, because if you're an up and coming artist, you have to know the right people, you have to impress the right people, the right people have to buy your art, you have to have them in the right studios if you want to make a real go of it. Like, you can make money as an artist,
Yeah.
without that, but
Sylvester Stallone, actually.
as a painter, is it?
No, he
Terry
is...
Crews.
Terry Crews. Oh, yeah.
Terry Crews is a
Crews is
huge
big in
painter,
art,
yeah.
Really?
He's
Yeah.
big.
He used to make a sideline when he was in the NFL doing portraits of
He
his
was in the
teammates.
NFL?
He was a footballer before he was a...
Was he?
Yeah.
Huh.
Big footballer,
And
yeah.
designed a
Well, I'm
famous
hoping
chair.
that Sylvester Stallone does his painting with blood.
No, Sylvester Stallone bought Graham Nuttall. You know Graham Nuttall?
No.
I've heard the name, yeah.
Oh, right. Well, anyway, I think it was Graham Nuttall that he bought loads of Graham Nuttall paintings. And then people were like, oh, Stallone, what's this up on the wall type of thing? And that helped Graham Nuttall's career.
I think, like all topics in the world, Sunny in Philadelphia did an episode on art and the value of art, and they sum it up perfectly.
Perfectly. Watch that episode.
Actually, wait a second. Do you
Yeah,
have
go ahead.
more about art on this, do you?
There is another painting, yes.
Okay. Because last week, and all three of us were like, oh yeah, we agree with this wholeheartedly. Last week, you mentioned that, like, the thing that, what's his name, Winston Churchill said, that, if we're not doing this for art, what are we doing it for?
Yeah.
So, is there a value for art?
Of course there is.
I'm not saying it's worthless. I'm just saying for one painting to be valued at $100 million is excessive. That's kind of my point. Not that art
But
is
the thing
meaningless.
is,
But
what's obsessive? What's excessive about it?
The thing about it is, of course, is that if the person that bought it can afford it,
Yeah, then it's not excessive.
it's not excessive
I mean,
to him. It seems excessive to us, never mind 104 million.
But I just think if I was even a billionaire, I'd be thinking you can buy one painting for 100 million, or
A billion paintings.
a
for
million
€1.
paint. Yeah, exactly. It's like,
that's poor.
And-
That's poor people thinking.
but my point is the quality won't be a million times better because you paid a million times more.
I think it is in your eyes. Beauty in the eye of the beholder, and art is so subjective that when you see something and it speaks to you, and you're like, man, I want to buy that, and then it's on auction and the price keeps going up, but you still want it. That's the value you put on it.
There's 100% definitely. There's a I think he's a Galway artist. Did you ever hear of Kenneth Webb?
No.
Okay. Well, Linda should, I remember when I started going out with Linda, and around about that time, there was in Kinney's. Remember when Kinney's Art Gallery, Barry, was down still on the. Kinney's Art Gallery. Yeah. So when Kinney's Art Gallery was, what's the street that
Middle
the
Street.
exit, Middle Street, the exit of the Keys was on?
Oh, the Keys.
Remember now, there's people in America listening to this who don't know Middle
Keys.
Street.
Dory. Not of the Keys, but of the King's Head.
Yeah, Middle Street.
Yeah, Middle Street. So basically, there was a picture, an artist, Kenneth Webb. Now, the picture cost, I remember, €16,000. If I had €16,000, I definitely would have bought the picture at the time.
Wow, you loved it.
Like
that
if
much.
I had €17,000, I would have spent 16,000 on the picture.
I don't buy that for a second.
No, Mart, the picture was gorgeous. And all it was, by the way,
It spoke to you.
Yeah, 100. And all it was, like, I can see it still. It was like a field, and it was full of flowers.
A field of flowers, it was called.
I don't know what it was called. I think it was called like a Flowers One or something. But then Linda, interestingly, was, you know, the way in Galway City in Ireland, there's a new bridge built.
Yeah.
And Linda took a picture of flowers that the council planted. And it looked exactly. I was like, where did you get the Kenneth Webb photograph from? It looked exactly like it. But
see, you don't need to be able to paint. Just take your camera out and take some pictures.
That's it, yeah.
Number 9 on the list, a Mercedes-Benz 300 SLR. Now, car aficionados will probably know what that is.
I know
if
what
you
it
don't,
is.
look it up. Have a look at what it looks like. This sold at auction for $143
Wait a second.
million.
We're going to figure out why.
Why would they auction a car? Would they not just buy
Oh,
it
cars
from
are
Mercedes
auction.
garage or whatever?
No, this is an old.
Oh,
It's a
wait a
vintage
second.
Old.
Yeah.
Wait a second.
It's a beauty.
It's not a
but-
James Bond car.
No.
Because it's not.
No.
Was it did someone, a famous movie star?
Not a clue. Didn't do
Oh,
any
you didn't?
research.
Okay, then-
Didn't
okay,
do
then.
any research on this. Remember, I don't look these things up. I find something interesting, I take it. I don't do anything further
Okay.
with it. But yeah, 143 million for a car.
Holy crap.
Yeah. Now, the second and only other painting I think on this list is The Card Players by Paul Cézanne. Is that how you pronounce his name?
Yep.
Cézanne. It's owned by a member of the Qatar royal family, Al Thani or something like that. $275 million.
Oh, wait a second. Are these going up in price?
Yeah, that's top 10.
Yeah, you got to start at the bottom and work your way. If you start at the top, everything else is like, oh yeah, but it's cheaper
exactly.
than the previous one.
yeah. It's not as expensive as a
Wait a second now.
Mercedes-Benz 300 SLR.
The Card Players, Barry.
Yeah.
I know I shouldn't, but I'm just...
Oh, I work away. And if you're listening to this on Spotify, obviously you're not going to be able to. But if you're watching this on YouTube, we might put a little.
Yeah, I'll put up
photograph
pictures. The Card
of it
Players, Cézanne. Wait a second now. We'll judge this and see if it's worth it.
Yeah, it's basically a painting of two guys playing cards.
It's a painting of two old guys playing cards, and it's not even that good. I saw The Card Players, another painting where it's all dogs. I would pay for that
better,
sooner than that.
Way better, yeah.
Well, I mean,
100%.
that picture with the dogs is
Seriously, that is
super
not a good
famous
painting.
in its own
One
right.
of the guys has a pipe and a
I know
top
it's
hat.
impressionist or whatever, but and the other guy's got a spliff.
No, it's a
He
pipe.
does.
It's a pipe. It's a pipe. That's a small clay pipe,
Okay, all right.
which was the style at the time. But yeah, $275 million Al Thani played for that.
They saw someone coming.
The next one on the list, number 7, is the house owned by someone called Edmund and Lily Safras. I have no idea who they are. I didn't do any kind of research.
You're
on
not
this at all.
slightly curiosity piqued when you just come across, oh, this
I
house
did,
with
and I
these
keep
people,
meaning
that'll
to,
do.
and I keep meaning to, and have little notes and stuff. I just never get around to it. I put my bits together, and you can.
Edmund, let's take a look at this house. Let's say...
I bet you they inherited a lot because their house is called Villa Leopolda, and it's worth $506 million. It was converted into a hospital during World War II. I know that.
Okay, it's a big-ass house.
It's a big-ass house.
I'm kind of surely there's houses that are more expensive than that. The Queen's house would be more expensive.
We'll get to that.
Oh, yeah, okay, go on.
In all honesty, and I do love houses, this kind of does just look like a house.
Yeah.
But then
Like a
again,
mansion.
like
with grounds.
So does, then again, if you say it that way,
gigantic
so does the
mansion.
Palace at Versailles.
Yeah.
That just looks like a house.
Actually, would the Palace of Versailles be for sale?
I don't know, because they sell it. It belongs to the French people, I think.
What is the Palace of Versailles? I know I should
Versailles.
You've seen it. If you
Under
watched
Versailles.
any movies, you've seen it. The long room at the Palace of Versailles is in
The Hall of Mirrors.
every film that they want to show opulence and wealth, and it's
When
been everywhere all over the world.
and from a war point
I know
of
the
view,
Treaty of Versailles.
Same, that's where it was signed.
Was signed inside the big long
Palace of
room
Versailles, yeah.
there. Yeah. Were you ever there, Barry?
No.
You haven't, I'm assuming,
No.
because you're asking. But
No, I've
it's
never.
absolutely flipping.
Yeah, it's
Gorgeous.
on my bucket list. It's on my
Yeah.
bucket list. Here's the dog.
Dog.
Again, anyone listening on Spotify wondering about that is the Mart's dog just hopped up on his lap.
And also, by the way, if you hear heavy breathing when the dog was on my lap, I heard like, And it was actually the dog.
It was the dog. Yeah,
Yeah,
we blame
it
the dog.
it is the
Or
dog.
if you hear a fart, it's the dog. It's definitely not one of us. Number 6 on the list is the Dream Jet. All right. 300 million jet owned by a company called Deerjet. It's a Boeing 787 that has such luxuries as a shower that's big enough for 2 people. It has a bedroom. It has like conference room. It has like dining room. It has all that stuff. And it's just an insane expensive jet. But you can't really buy it. It's worth 300 million, but you can't buy it.
Yeah, I was going to say, because that house was worth 500 million, and now it's going down in price. Although it's kind of
Yeah, no.
worth 300 million, but also priceless.
Yeah. Yeah, that one is strange. I don't know.
But I mean, I'm not surprised by that, because you see all that on movies and stuff where it's just like, I don't know, seeing a ridiculously expensive jet with showers and stuff in it is like
Obviously got that the
business
wrong
as
way
usual
around.
for billionaires.
And that's it. Like now we're moving into the real money.
Yes.
The crown jewel.
Oh, the jewel that England stole from India.
That one, yeah. It's worth $591 million. And yes,
or
you're
free
right.
if you just steal it.
Yeah. Well, yeah. If you're a colonial imperialistic, you're like, yep, yoink. That'll do me. Thank you very much. Yeah, and they want it back.
I was actually,
India want it back.
I was going to say there's a whole movement happening now.
Yeah.
Where
The repatriation of stolen goods.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember. We talked about that in our literal first episode, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
actually, what's your take on that? Should they be given back?
I think if it's something that colonial.
But see, once you start that, where does it end?
Yeah, well, that's the thing.
By the way,
That's
I'm not
thing.
making an
Yeah.
argument against doing it. I'm just
Yeah,
saying
yeah.
that's why people who have stuff don't want to give it away.
But it was like the thing I saw. I don't know where I saw it, but it said name something that seems English but isn't. And someone said the contents of the British Museum.
yeah. Yeah.
It was just very, very funny. Then there's another house. This is the Antilia Mansion. Now, if you're going to look up anything, Donald, bring up an image of that so you and Mart can see it. This is owned by a guy called Mukesh Ambani, and it's worth $2 billion.
There's a hike in the price.
$2 billion. Sorry,
Yeah.
one second now. Oh, this is the Indian guy. I actually know this house.
Yeah, he's like the eighth richest man in the world, 5th richest Asian.
Really?
Yeah, and that's his house.
What does he do? That he's so
He owns a
rich?
company. I can't remember what they're called.
Ah, a company.
Yeah, they do stuff.
That's how you make
and
money.
Yeah, owning a company.
Wait a second now. Like, that's a pretty flaming terrible house.
It's as ugly as sin. It looks like a stack of books.
Yeah.
It looks like a stack of books. Just
How much did you say? 2 billion?
Wait a second now.
billion.
If you're going to describe that, it literally does actually look like if you got a stack of books and the books are stacked kind of lying sideways inside a dark grey bookshelf you get from IKEA.
Yeah,
But
that's
it's
pretty
massive.
accurate. It's a big, huge house, but yeah, not very nice, not very aesthetic. Well, again, it's subjective. Someone will look at that and go, "That's beautiful." But $2 billion that house is worth. The next up in this is the Hubble Space Telescope.
Okay, wait a second. Can we guess how much it is?
You can.
Is it more than 2 billion?
It is.
12 billion.
No, my God. I would say. See, there's a kind of a magical number of 2 billion that governments are okay with. I'm going to say 2.3 billion.
Man, you're really, really close. 2.1.
Really?
2.1 billion for the Hubble Telescope.
There's
Yeah.
something like, even
Well,
as
then-
ridiculous as our government is, we're like, I can't believe that Children's Hospital cost 2 billion.
So far. 2 billion so far.
Is that how much the Children's Hospital cost?
So
Mart,
far.
when
And they've
is-
got 80 rooms out of the
And again, to our
3,000.
international
Right.
listeners, there's a hospital they were building in Ireland. It was a children's hospital, and then they just overran like insanely the
But
budget.
do you know what the
the
original
predictions.
budget for the Children's Hospital was?
No.
Right?
I'm going to guess 500 million.
650 million.
That wasn't too far off.
Wow.
Yeah. And we're up to 2 billion,
Yeah.
which is insane.
And it'll probably go up to 2.1 or 2.2 billion.
Probably at least,
Yeah.
if not 2.5.
So was that the second? Is that number
That
9
was
on the
3.
list?
That was
okay.
number 3.
Because I'm
Number 2.
presuming- Yeah, go on.
Number 2 is it's again, you want to bring this up, the History Supreme Yacht, which comes in at a yacht. This is a boat that's.
What?
Yep.
All I did is type history and History's Premium came up.
There you go. I know you would think there'd be a lot more things with history, but it's listening.
Wow.
AI has us.
Yeah,
they
but I
have
never
us.
saw that much of a sign of.
4.8 billion for
It's got to be a Russian oligarch.
probably. I didn't actually look up who owns it, so we'll have to have a look here now.
Okay, let's describe this yacht. Wait a
It
second.
looks like a speedboat.
yacht. It does.
Wait a second.
It looks like a speedboat.
That can't be billions.
Yeah, 4.8 billion.
That can't be.
It's owned by Stuart Hughes. Is that right? Did I see that right? As
Yeah.
you flashed down.
Okay, we're losing our audience.
Yeah,
We're just
that's
listening.
incredible. The number one most expensive thing.
It's got to be this James Webb telescope if the Hubble telescope is also on the list.
No, the James Hubble. No, I don't know if this is if when I was looking it up, was it old or what? But the International Space Station.
Nice.
Now you were guessing. Do you want to have a guess at how much they've spent on the International Space Station thus far?
8 billion.
Oh, I was going to say 10. I'm going to say 11.2 billion.
11.2. Oh, so close, but also really, really far away. 150 billion.
Okay, that is definitely the most expensive thing.
Yeah, it's
things
number
go.
one.
Wow.
It's got number one sewn up.
What was I thinking? 8 billion.
8 billion wouldn't even buy you one of those solar panels on it or something. I don't know. But yeah, that's a list of the 10 most most expensive things in the world.
That's incredible, actually.
Yeah, it's insane. Absolutely insane.
Damn.
So now, you guys, what do you got?
Huh. Go
Mark,
on,
what do you
though.
have? Do you have anything else, Mark? Because I wanted to get one thing here. Have you ever seen the film The Terminal?
No.
I don't know. When did it come out?
It came out in I'll tell you in 2 seconds.
I
When it
think
came
I
out.
have, but it's been so long ago that I honestly
But
can't
basically,
remember if I
The
have or
Terminal
not.
is based on it's based on this guy who's from this foreign kind of around about Croatia, around about that ex-Russian
Eastern
country,
Europe.
in Eastern Europe type
Yeah.
of thing. Okay, and then he leaves Eastern Europe to go to America because he has a job to do in America. But while he's in transit in America, while he's in transit, his country has been taken over. There's a coup and there's new government, and he becomes passportless.
Oh, this is the guy who's stuck in the airport and it's based on a true
Yeah.
story, and Tom Hanks is in it.
That's it. And I didn't know this, but the movie was inspired by Mihram Karimi Nassiri. Okay, and he landed in Charles de Gaulle Airport in 1988, and he left the terminal in 2006 to be hospitalized. But basically, he just lived in the hospital in the airport Charles de Gaulle for years.
Yeah. It's an insane story, and Jeannie Mac, 8 years living in an airport, and people give out about him, being stuck there for a few hours.
Like after being denied
It is
entry
weird that
into
that could
England
possibly be a
because
thing.
of his Iranian passport and United Nations refugee certificate had been stolen.
Wow! So it wasn't like in the movie his country was taken over in a coup d'état. In real life, he just was unlucky.
Yeah,
His
because
stuff got stolen, and
but this sounds more realistic. As in
Well,
the
yeah.
term, the film. No, the film sounds more realistic.
does it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Then his ID was stolen.
Yeah.
Like, couldn't his family or someone have just
I know, it seems weird that would happen. But,
photocopied it or something? But it's impressive. Yeah.
It's nuts.
And by the way, his the real guy, Nassiri moved back to Charles de Gaulle Airport in October 2022. So in other words, we went to Paris last year. He was in Paris in the time that we were there.
Yeah,
He died in the Terminal 2F on November...
why did he go back?
Because he wanted to die there. He lived for a lot of years there. No, he went back there to live there.
Is that the true story, or are you just reading?
Yeah, no, I mean, like, yeah, he moved back to the terminal.
Yeah, and then he died there. I'm reading what you're reading, but it
Yeah.
doesn't say he moved back there deliberately because he liked it so much that he said, "I'm old. I choose to die in the place that I love the most, the airport."
Well, I mean, okay,
That's a big assumption
I'm
based on-
extrapolating a
It's
little
like,
bit.
you know.
But why else do you think he would have moved back there? He didn't move back.
I have no idea.
Yeah,
That's
no,
why I'm
that's-
asking.
So,
Yeah.
damn it, I lost my passport again.
Yeah, no, it's weird. And wasn't he like he lived in Terminal 1, but he died in Terminal 2F? So
Well, at least he made some progress.
yeah,
The other thing I was going to talk about, okay, there's two things I was going to talk about. The first thing is, I wanted to give props to Aidan Smith, who we mentioned last week. Okay, Aidan has made these. Aidan is effectively, I think, our first sponsor in that he has made us on this quality tea coaster. Is that what it's called?
for people on Spotify, Donald is holding up a wooden coaster, I guess, yeah, with our emblem for things you didn't ask for and didn't need to know on it. And it looks amazing.
Yep.
Awesome. I should
Aidan-
also just do a minor correction here, just when you say Aidan is our first sponsor, other than Rachel, who
Other than Rachel,
sponsored
yeah.
us all the audio equipment. If you
Yeah.
go back to episodes 1, 2, and 3,
Yes.
and then you'll hear the difference, you'll appreciate that sponsorship too, which was awesome.
What am I holding in my hand here, Barry?
You're holding a mug that also has things you didn't ask for and didn't
Yeah.
need to know on it.
I gotta say, the orange colour really is awful.
Yeah, I don't like the orange.
It's horrible.
But
But
look
the,
at-
the pattern on the cup is awesome. If you got
Yeah.
that in white or blue or something, it'd be great.
It'd be nice. Yeah, or a black cup. I think a black cup.
Black,
With that
black is good.
would be really,
Black?
really nice. Yeah.
Some people do not like drinking out of black cups because they're like, I can't see down there, I'm not going to drink it. That's a true story.
Yeah, because piranhas are famously known for hiding in cups of tea.
You don't know that, and admittedly, we used to, like Mart, didn't we always drink Lion's tea?
Yes.
For the
Same.
people who don't know tea, for the people who don't know tea, we always used to drink Lion's tea. Then Lions, purely because of marketing, they changed their tea bag from a normal tea bag into a stupid, ridiculous pyramid shape.
Triangle thing.
Okay,
Yeah.
and that was okay. But then when the novelty wore off of that, then they made the bags biodegradable,
Okay.
Yeah.
which all works fine in theory for the planet that doesn't give a damn. But when you put the tea bag into the cup, now it literally starts to biodegrade straight away and the tea bag bursts.
No, well, I did find, and this is years ago, I noticed, I have to be really careful with my tea bag or it breaks. I never knew why. Now I know why.
Well, here's the funny thing, though. Here's the funny thing. Like you, I grew up in a Lion's house. And again, for people outside of Ireland, you're either a Lion's house or a Barry's house, and that's it. Like, and I grew up in a Lion's house, but then after Brexit, Lions went up in price and Barry's didn't, so we switched to Barry's tea. And all my years of drinking Lions, with including the pyramid tea bags, including the biodegradable,
Yeah.
I never, not once, had a tea bag burst on me. Not once. Not a single one ever. Since switching to Barry's, which are regular normal tea bags, I've had it happen. It happens maybe once out of 20 cups.
Oh, because I was just
right.
about to compliment your bag handling technique until you just totally let yourself down there.
Yeah, I
Jeez.
burst 1 out of 20, roughly speaking. That's not a hard
Your
hard
bag
number.
handling technique.
And yeah, it's got to be one of the most annoying things because you rarely notice it until you put the milk in.
But I'm going to say,
you're
right, tea's ruined then, it's ruined. But I remember they made granulated tea, just like there's granulated coffee. And
I think you're
I'm
mentioning
quite
that before,
discerning
and it
about my
sounds kinda
tea.
Gross.
it's perfectly fine. And I'm very specific about my tea. But it's like the whole process of making tea, and we're not going to go into this, or we could do a whole other episode about it. But it's a fine art, and it's also a roll of the dice. You could do everything right and still end up with a crap cup of tea. And yet, with the granules, it increases the probability of ending up with a good cup of tea. I found. It was a little experiment Lions did for like a very short period of time, and they discontinued it.
I do have in my house, like normally it's tea bags, but I do have a jar, I guess, a metal tin, a tin of Campbell's tea.
What's Campbell's tea?
It's their
Another tea
it's
that
a-
isn't Barry's or Lions?
It's like a step up from those.
It's a notions tea.
Yeah, I don't know where you can buy it in Dunn's, but you can also buy them at Cambridge's, that kind of thing. It's just it's a step up, and we have a little teapot that has the plungery section in it. So you put your tea bags into the center metal section, pour in your hot water, which fills up the teapot around it, and then you plunge the thing down, and it squeezes out the tea. And the tea that it makes is just divine.
I'm so
beautiful.
out.
It's beautiful.
What was I going to say?
The second thing.
The second thing is...
And thanks, Aidan.
Yes.
Yes,
Remember
thank you.
last week when Aidan... Yeah. How do we go from there? Talking about this to...
Well, it's a tea coaster and a cup.
It's a tea coaster and a cup, a mug there as well. It's all it's all linked.
So, basically, Aidan gave us the point last week of... Aidan gave us loads of points, but one of the things that Aidan said overlapped with one of the things you were saying about the film. Remember the film you were talking about?
No.
The movie with AI and the
The
actress
movie
who...
with AI.
Oh yes, yeah.
Congress?
Yes, the Congress. Yeah,
The
or
Congress.
something, yeah.
Did you hear the latest thing that that, you know, the way there's the actors have now gone on strike.
Yes.
Okay, this is...
Actually, I was thinking, did we even mention that last week in an actual episode about the future of cinema, and we were talking about streaming, and I think we forgot to mention the ongoing strike, which is all about all this.
Yeah, the writer's strike was on at that time, but now the actors have gone on strike as well.
So this is like the 17th of July 2023, they were saying. That's just timestamp.
Yeah.
But did you hear the latest thing that the Screen Actors Guild are against?
No.
Okay, and this is the best thing ever to be against.
Not making money.
No, wait. The Screen Actors Guild were saying, we're rejecting the idea of having an extra come in. I'm saying this in such a balls way, of having an extra come in, as in, here's what, I don't know what the other people who are against the Screen Actors Guild, not against them, but the people who are...
Studios?
The studios, I guess. Yeah, let's say generically the studios were saying, here's what we want. We want the right to be able to go, and if an extra comes in and acts on film X, okay, that they will record the likeness, the voice.
Yeah, basically video capture them and then just use them.
Video capture that person.
Yeah.
And use everything about them in every single way forever for that one film.
Ah, no, that's bullshit.
No, but see that.
But that's literally what the Congress was about.
Yeah, but that's also where it's going to go. Like, remember we kind of covered this last week. We were kind of saying, like, if they could have done that with Robert Downey Jr. in Iron Man, hey presto, you have Iron Man in every Marvel movie forever for free, as opposed to paying Robert Downey Jr. 100 million quid to do in-game.
Yeah. Well, it's
but like that's one.
Scarily close to it.
It's one thing for it's one thing for a studio to want to replicate Robert Downey Jr. because he costs 100 million. It's a totally other thing to take an extra who's earning, you know, $200 in his day or 100 quid if he's in Ireland, and that's it. You get to do one. You get your 100 quid. You're gone. We don't need you ever again. Good luck.
Yeah.
But if you think about it from a business perspective, that's manna from the heavens for.
Oh no, from a business perspective,
from,
100%.
But it's like I don't know if we talked about Danny Trejo the last day as well, about how he
from
will
Los Angeles.
He'd never do his own stunts because he doesn't want to put someone else out of work. It's that idea. It's like, this is people's livelihood. People are extras, and that is their job. They go from set to set to film.
But I'm going to be
TV
devil's
show.
advocate and say, you know, AI is going to displace loads of jobs.
Oh God, yeah.
We should definitely do an episode about that. But anyway.
And that's it. Do you want to hear a macroeconomics fact?
Yeah, throw us a macroeconomics fact.
So this isn't written down or anything. So from the time of the Industrial Revolution, in general, the gap between the poor and the rich was getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Mm-hmm. Up to, believe it or not, the last 10 years. As in up to 10 years ago.
Okay.
When the gap between rich and poor started to close in, absolutely in no way that would make a difference to, in no way that would make a difference to rich people or poor people.
But it was just a trend did reverse.
The trend was, instead of increasing, it was like starting to narrow. But then COVID happened and it went, and it just kind of massively increased again. So in other words, the gap increased again between the rich and the poor. But overall... So
what you're saying is that the rich people started COVID.
That is a whole other definite episode. Definitely. We're not going to go there now.
But
let's see.
But the poor people, if you take poor people as a whole, are better off as a whole than they were. Because places like China, Thailand, like lots of India, that kind of stuff, a lot of the poorest people there that were bringing down the level of, that was making the level of poor people we have even poorer. Those poor people have been lifted out of the extreme poverty.
No, they're only just poor.
No,
they're just really poor. From extremely poor.
But with that said, there's a smaller group of rich people who've gotten even richer.
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah, that's that. That's nothing to take from that, really.
Yeah, it's interesting. Definitely nobody asked for it, and nobody needs to know it, but there you go.
There you go.
Mart, what do you got?
Okay, I'm going to try to keep this short because I just can't always talk about UFOs. So the only thing I think we really have to mention is, I'm sure you've heard of this talk of the cage fight between Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg.
Is that going to happen?
Briefly I heard some small thing about it. I didn't think it was serious though.
See, a lot of people don't think it's serious, and yet Mark Zuckerberg is definitely making moves to be saying, well, I am up for it.
Yeah.
In all seriousness.
And he has been training.
He's been doing
Taekwondo or something, I think,
no,
for years.
yeah, he's been doing some kind of judo or something for the
yeah.
last, like, literally, I think he started in COVID, but he's been doing it for years.
I love Elon Musk, even though he's kind of, I think he has serious issues. But Mark Zuckerberg would, I would imagine, Mark Zuckerberg would kick his ass
100%
into
he would.
oblivion.
I just don't, but the only thing is, if it was anyone else, they're so mismatched, you know that he would just say, oh,
do you
I'm
guys
all
remember
just trolling.
that? Do you remember that episode of Friends where Monica started dating the billionaire?
Yeah.
I've
taken on the financial world.
Yeah.
I've taken on the spiritual world or something.
Yeah,
he said,
yeah.
there's only one thing I have to take on now, the physical world.
Yeah.
And he was like, ugh.
But I think when it's Elon Musk, you don't know what he's going to do. And he does troll. He trolls all the time.
He's a troll. But he is, I've never seen the two of them side by side, but like Mark
He's
Zuckerberg
bigger.
always looks like he'd be
Yeah.
blown over in a stiff breeze, whereas Elon Musk looks like he's stocky.
He's bigger
and
he's got the reach. He's taller.
Yeah, I don't know if that makes a huge difference, but I don't know, man. I don't know who I'd put my money on.
It would be an interesting...
I'd watch it for sure.
There's absolutely no doubt that Mark Zuckerberg would win. He would definitely win.
Well, if this does go through, and if I had to bet, I would say it's not going to go through. But it's also there's, it's like in Dumb and Dumber, so you're telling me there is a chance. There is a chance it might happen.
Yeah, it'd be interesting.
And if it does, I'm going to say definitely this is evidence that they're so rich that they're just looking for something so they can feel the feels again.
Yeah, something, anything to feel.
Yeah.
Punch me in the face, other billionaire.
Crazy.
I hurt myself.
Anyway,
Like,
unless we have anything else to say,
competition,
let's
but the
talk
ultimate-
UFOs.
Woo!
Yeah. Can I start and say that I misunderstood the brief?
I was going to say, and I already knew you did, because, and I'm going to start off by saying, I'm talking UFOs here,
Yeah.
not aliens.
Yeah.
Because there's a whole other different conversation, which would be aliens. And yet,
literally.
don't burn your pages. I mean, you can't talk about UFOs without talking about aliens.
I think I also misunderstood the brief.
Yeah, but I will say, you definitely, we're going to end up talking about aliens, right?
Yeah.
So before I start, I want to lay down the groundwork here, okay?
Okay.
The whole topic of aliens is something I've been interested in basically all my life. Since the X-Files, you guys I'm sure watched X-Files too. We all grew up with this kind of stuff. And
Even before the
even
X-Files.
before, because I remember I had that book, Mysteries of the Unexplained.
Yeah,
and,
and you had E.T. and you had Close Encounters.
But see, that's
They were
all fictional stuff. But when I
yeah.
started reading, hey, wait, there's claims that this is real. And you're a kid, so you start believing this stuff. And then you grow up a bit and realize, that book also contained the Loch Ness Monster and Bigfoot. And you think, and then you just
I never
dismiss
even
it.
thought about that, actually.
But I'm going to talk about a sliding scale, right? From what is the more brass tacks, believable, if there is any sort of evidence, this is it. And the scale is going to slide all the way over to Bigfoot, Loch Ness Monster, ghosts and stuff, kind of territory. And I'm going to elaborate when we're in each place because, unfortunately, the whole idea of talk of UFOs and stuff, it really is tainted with the most stupid nonsense. And there's all this talk of people saying they were abducted by UFOs, and it's always, why do they abduct a redneck hillbilly from the back of beyond? And they don't, there's so much that is incredulous. That's kind of like, yeah, that's bullshit. We kind of know that that's just made up or hallucinated or whatever. But I'm going to start at the more kind of recent, realistic-y type stuff. But before I even go there, I want to ask you both a question.
Go.
And I'm not going to ask, do you believe in UFOs? Because UFOs are, something you don't know. Therefore, it's unidentified. And it's up there, so therefore it's flying. So therefore, it's a UFO. And that's not the question.
Okay.
And by the way, I'm also going to acknowledge UFOs, because of this already what we mentioned, taint of ridiculousness that's associated with it. We had this discussion, I don't know, a couple of weeks ago. They've basically renamed them to UAPs, which initially was unidentified aerial phenomenon. And then, people start saying, wait a minute, these things are coming into the sea and stuff as well. So they wanted to change the aerial bit. So they called it unidentified anomalous phenomenon. That was a bit that I couldn't remember the other day. So I'm just going to use UFOs mostly. I think UFO, UAP, it's interchangeable anyway. But I'm going to ask you first, Barry. Yeah. And I'm also going to ask all the listeners, ask yourself this question and answer it to yourself. Do you believe that and I'm not even going to ask you, do you believe aliens exist? Do you believe intelligent aliens exist and are visiting Earth now?
No.
No.
Okay, interesting. Now, and that's a good starting point, because I would almost definitely have always been so interested by the topic, but also if you asked me, I would have said no as well.
You would have.
I would have. Something very interesting happened in 2017, and I consider it like a line in the sand, where everything that came before, I put it all in one basket of bullshit. Bullshit that I was really interested in, and I found it really intriguing to think, oh, imagine, what if? But also you kind of know it's nonsense. And then in 2017, the New York Times released a story, and basically it kind of cast the whole UFOlogy into a kind of a, maybe there is something to this, kind of a light. So I'll tell you about it. I presume you haven't heard about it, or do you know?
Not 2017 is so long ago.
Well, the funny thing is, this incident actually happened in 2004.
Yeah.
And you know how there's like the men in black, they show up with black helicopters and take all the videotapes away and tell you to shut your mouth and all this kind of... None of that happened, right? There was I think 2004 was around the Gulf War time. And there was a aircraft carrier and a battle group, they call it, where, you know, an aircraft carrier never goes around on its own. There's like a huge bunch of ships around it, warships, and there's one ship called the Aegis Cruiser. It's a thing that has all radars and stuff on it that can do all the scanning around. And they do all these exercises in the kind of eastern seaboard of America to kind of practice, you know, and especially the aircraft taken off the aircraft carrier. They do their little sorties flying around, and they do practice and stuff before they get deployed into combat in war. And basically, these guys saw something, but they didn't just kind of see it. There was a little bit, they captured it on camera and stuff like that, enough. And I'll name the videos because there's 3 famous videos doing the rounds on the internet. And no, I will say straight away, if you Google this crap, or if you're on TikTok, especially lately, there's a ton of UFO videos. They're all fake or bullshit. I guarantee you they all are, right? The only thing I would put any stock in is these 3 videos in particular that were released by the Pentagon, and they acknowledge, yeah, they're real, and we don't know what they are. So there's a whole lot going on there, but I'll basically tell you the story of... Okay. It's called the USS Nimitz incident because that was the name of the aircraft carrier that it was on. But basically, there's this guy, and I should say as well, he's not just a guy. He was do you know the movie Top Gun? You know, Tom Cruise. We're the best of the best.
Yeah.
This guy graduated from the Top Gun School of Flight, and you know him and but there was 2 fighter jets. So each fighter jet has the main pilot and the guy in the back seat, the weapons guy. So there was 2 of them, and they went off and they were flying around. And as they're going along, they see down on the sea, and the way he describes it is kind of like it's a crystal clear day, like you could see for miles. And they're not like us with our squinty eyes. These are like, you know, Air Force pilots that have good vision. They saw on the sea. What he describes it as is it looked as if, say, it was a cross-shaped thing about the size of a 737. I mean, a pilot's going to use a plane or an aero thing.
No, they're American. They just don't want to use the bloody metric system no matter what.
Yeah. But basically he was saying it was like the water was breaking on this thing. You know, if a rock is kind of sticking a little bit or just under the water, the sea is kind of breaking. So he's saying perfectly flat, clear sea, and suddenly you're seeing this kind of a ripple in the water. So he was like, well, what the hell is that? Just it drew their eyes to it. But then they noticed, and the way he describes it, it's a weird description, but he said it was like a TicTac. There was this little thing, it was about the size of, say, a school bus, and it was a perfectly white, literally just TicTac shape, and it was zipping around. And the way he described that was, it's as if you put a ping pong ball into a big glass, an empty glass, and just shake it around. It's like zipping to and fro really, really quick. But it wasn't even doing it just up and down. It was like over here, over left, up, down, all bouncing all over the place, over this thing. So, you know, he just said to the other pilot, are you seeing this? And they were like, yeah. So he decided, okay, I'm going to fly down to it and, you know, see what it is, basically. So as he started flying down toward this thing started flying up toward him. Now, it's interesting to point out at this stage, okay, because I can give you, like, there are, since I'm going to say the 40s, but really, you can go back to Roman times. There's old inscriptions of somebody saying they saw something in the sky. All these stories, if anyone tells me I saw something in the sky, I'm going to say, you think you did, but you didn't. Because basically, 99.999% of all UFO sightings, they're all mistakes. Either mistakes or bullshit, or somebody making up stuff looking for attention. But it does get interesting in this case, because there's 4 trained Top Gun pilots all seeing this thing. They caught it on their nose cam, which is a gun cam that kind of, they caught it on that. They flipped on the infrared, and they caught it on radar. So what makes this interesting and really undeniable that something happened. Now, this is not saying, hey, aliens. It's just saying something really weird.
Yeah.
And it is, there was different technologies that caught it. It's not like they caught it on a camera. You might say, well, the camera was faulty. There was a speck on the lens, These are different cameras from 2 different planes and even different cameras on board. So anyway, this guy's flying down toward this thing. The thing starts flying up toward him. So the TicTac kind of assumed what he describes as the kind of aerial superiority position of kind of up above him and kind of behind him. And he's trying to get around it, so they're kind of swirling around each other. And as he's trying to get a position on this thing, it just goes pew, and just flies off. But it just flew off like really, really fast. So, they were saying, oh my God, can you believe it? Did you see that, etc.? And anyway, they decided to fly back. Basically what they were doing before they saw this thing is they were going to do a combat exercise. So there's all their planes are set into 2 different sides. Like, you meet over there, we'll meet over here, and you're the goodies and we're the baddies, and we're going to fly at each other and do exercises. You saw this if you saw the new Top Gun movie.
Or the old one.
But they had this kind of a point that they were set to meet at. And when they saw this thing and it flew away, they were like, okay, well, that was weird, but hey, let's get back to our, they call it the cap point, which is 60 miles away. And next thing you heard on the radio, you won't believe this. That thing is back at your cap point. Whatever it was, it went back to where they were going to meet. And this is like a secret encrypted spot that's just a random, it's a spot in the sky basically. So it's not like it's a specific place or anything. They had agreed, this is going to be where we'll assemble and you'll assemble over there. It went back there. So they went back to the aircraft carrier, and this is what's ridiculous, right? Because this happened in 2004. And I listened to multiple interviews with this guy. And it's crazy because the way he talks about it, he's like, we landed back. It was like, what the hell? This is weird. We're busy, because they do like 18-hour days. They're getting ready to go into combat, fight and kill and risk dying. They don't have the bandwidth to be like, wow, what just happened and what are we going to do about it? And it was reported, because every time they see anything like that, they've got to put it in their report. There's a debrief. It goes up the chain wherever. And basically it just went nowhere. So this got filed away somewhere. And
I like to think of a big filing cabinet.
Yeah.
In a warehouse full of boxes.
But the crazy thing is, he just goes about his life. And it's funny that they looked at when they look back on it, like it was, I think they have the data of exactly what it did. It was flying around really fast, as I described, but it went from 50 feet above water to 80,000 feet in 1 second, or less than a second, which like nothing on Earth, or at least I should say no known technology on Earth can do that. And this is kind of undeniably caught on military grade radar and technology. So that happened, right? And that's interesting. So he went back and he talked about it, and actually the person on the Aegis cruiser, the radar guy, kind of said, oh yeah, we've been seeing these things for the last 2 weeks. Don't know what the hell they are. There's loads of them. They're out there all the time. And the other person in the other plane was really pissed off at that, because she was like, you just sent us out into airspace with unknown entities in it, and you didn't even tell us. And she was really thick about it. She didn't do, I think she did 1 interview. She stopped doing interviews because she was just mad at the military about it. But this guy, his name is Commander David Fravor. He is, he was the commander. So he told another sortie going out later that evening, if you see one of those things, I don't know, film it or something. Because they didn't really film it much at all. So this other guy had this thought, I'm going to. So that was him and I think 2 or 3 of the planes. They went out, they saw one again, and they actually managed to catch it on their nose cam. And this is one of the videos that's now declassified and out there. And you can see the way it's like he's zooming in and out trying to capture it. And when it finally locks in on it, see, this doesn't seem like a lot, but the fact that their gun cam was able to lock in on the target tells you this is a real thing. Because the problem is there's any aliens or a UFO story or anything, there's a ton of people who make a living out of just, we debunk things, that's our job. The famous UFO debunker is a guy called Mick West. He has a YouTube channel. The problem with that is, if you set out with the objective, I am going to debunk this, that's not the scientific method. The scientific method is, I'm going to approach this with all of the scientific knowledge I have and no preconceptions in my mind, analyze the data and draw conclusions. That's how you're meant to look at anything. He doesn't do that. And any debunker, inherently by the name debunker, doesn't do that. They are setting out to debunk it.
Yeah, they're making sure that the narrative fits their
Yeah. And it's not like they're, working for the man. This isn't part of a government cover-up. It's just a guy with a YouTube channel who's found a topic that, he can talk about. And I'm sure he believes it as well. He's not like, I'm sure. But it's just that is a kind of, I think it's intellectually dishonest to start off with, well, I've already made up my mind what it is, and now I'm going to come up with a reason why I'm right. So anyway, this other guy, I think he caught 2 videos at the time. And interestingly, one thing he did, he kind of, the radar scans everywhere and picks up what's in the sky. But you can actually focus your radar on an object or a thing to get a clear reading of it. So he did that to this TicTac thing. And this TicTac thing actively jammed the radar. Now, I didn't know what that really meant until I read about this and heard about it and listened to, podcasts and stuff about it. But it's interesting because active jamming is a very specific technological thing. Active jamming doesn't happen naturally in nature if you scan something. And in fact, it's so serious, if you actively jam something, it's considered an act of war. So this thing actively jammed their radar and prevented them from being able to scan it properly. So that made me think. And the funny thing is, all this happened in 2004. All these people went back to the ship. They reported it in their logs. They went on with their lives. And, this guy had a funny story to tell at parties. I chased a UFO once. And that was a decade and a bit later. Some New York Times... Oh, actually, there's a big, long way that it got there. But let's just zoom in at this stage of the conversation and say, New York Times came across these 3 videos that were released, or I should say, declassified by the Pentagon. So therefore, they were allowed to be released. And the Pentagon did acknowledge, yeah, they're real, though. The New York Times did an article on it, and, it kind of suddenly made people really ask, hey, what's going on here? And what's interesting about it is the New York Times piece, also another revelation in their piece was they revealed, by the way, the Pentagon has a secret black box operation of investigating UFOs that's been going on now for, at that stage, this particular one had been going on for a couple of years, maybe 5 or 6 years or something. And I won't go into too much detail, but basically they were saying, hey, American people, the Pentagon is spending your tax dollars, chasing UFOs. So how do you feel about that? But also, look what they found. It's actually kind of interesting. So that made me think, this does seem kind of interesting and sounds kind of believable. And it also reframed every stupid UFO story I ever heard before then, because I started thinking, because this is what really I find interesting. You might say 99.99999% of all UFO sightings are fake and bullshit and made up and wrong and mistakes and swamp gas and everything. But if there's a 0.0001 that is true and real and of non-human origin, that's all it takes to be like, oh my God, aliens exist. And if aliens exist, then that's literally the next biggest breaking news story in humanity, other than, hey, I found proof that God exists or doesn't.
Yeah.
It's so huge of a story.
Yeah.
And it's been going on now, 2017? 6 years this has been to light. And it's like,
Yeah.
how come not everyone is amazed by this and talking about it and knowing it and wanting to know more? I'm surprised. It shocks me a bit.
Yeah. And I guess that's probably the most interesting thing about it is why isn't it bigger?
Oh, I know why it's not bigger, actually.
Okay, go on.
And this also makes me sad. Do you remember, this is, I don't know, maybe 5 years ago or something, a milestone in human, in humanity, in their space kind of exploration and achievements?
I think I know what you're going to say.
They landed
No. That's not.
Well, they landed a satellite on a meteor just flying through space at like hundreds of thousands of miles an hour or whatever.
that was good.
They landed on it.
I actually thought you were going to say that No, it's gone. One of our probes that we launched back in the 70s, I think.
Oh, the
was.
Voyager one.
Voyager, that's it. Thank you.
It left our solar system.
Yeah, it left our first man-made object to leave the
this.
solar system.
Well, and that's also, by the way, that's a huge, milestone achievement for our species.
Yeah.
But I think to land a probe on a meteor flying through space, holy moly!
Yeah,
and
incredible.
the internet blew up that day. But guess what it blew up about?
The different colours of a dress. No.
Kim Kardashian put a champagne glass on her butt and whatever, and I was just like, how is this the main headlines?
Yeah.
Why would I
disappointing,
go
isn't
on
it?
every
It's disappointing.
Reddit
It's
and all this? Why? What the hell?
That's not a good idea, dude. Sorry, for those listening, Donald just put a bottle of water closed, albeit, but sideways on the top of his laptop for some reason.
Yeah, what's the worst could happen?
Yeah, exactly.
Mart,
That wasn't a
you're
You're 100% right. It's very disappointing when humanity disappoints, but humanity has
I
the
get it, though,
capacity for
people-
disappointment
I
daily.
get that people are people have different interests, but I mean, if somebody found out, holy moly, here's proof God exists, or maybe here's proof definitively, there's no doubt now God doesn't exist.
But
I would
you
hope
don't
it'd be like, wow, let's talk about that for a while.
Yeah, but it's not. It's even like you can say the God thing, but the alien thing is huge. If aliens exist and if they visited us, that's massive. It's absolutely massive. Like, and you're absolutely right. But I've always been of the opinion that this thing of the Kardashians and back in the 90s, it was do you remember it was the It Girls and the It people? They were always talking about them, Paris Hilton and.
Oh, I thought you were going to say the IT crowd.
Not the IT crowd, no, not IT. I nearly said IT, but it's actually it people. These were like people that were famous for going to parties, and it's sickening. I don't even like. I actually genuinely dislike celebrity gossip, or like the likes of Heat magazine or any of those, or the Sun or any of that stuff, because I don't care what George Clooney puts in his hair. I don't give a damn if Michelle Pfeiffer wore her tracksuit going to the shop. I literally could not care less. I want to see them in movies. I want to see the musicians making music. I want to listen to their music. I want to look at movies. I want to read books. I don't care what the people behind them do. Really, what's important is proper news like that.
Well, I almost hesitate, though, even though I just did it, I would almost hesitate to be saying, proper news as opposed to, because there's a bit of elitism about, the thing I'm interested in is proper news, and the thing you're interested in is like lower class.
It's literally my own opinion.
But
I just don't like.
I just don't understand why is this not
bigger,
like talked about every at least at the time, every single news station on earth should have been screaming about it, and then a year later. And to look back, what happened on this since kind of thing.
Yeah.
I just don't understand why it's not a bigger deal. Although I kind of do still, because that incident is... Oh, actually, I should say as well, for anyone looking to look up the videos, I'd almost say, firstly, don't bother. They're very disappointing. If you see them, it's like, they look like nothing. Because when I watched them in a podcast with David Fravor describing why... See that thing there? See how it does that? See why it doesn't do this? That's what's significant about that video. If you just look it up on YouTube, it's like a stupid, crappy, grainy video. There's three of them. One is called the Go Fast video. One is called FLIR, F-L-I-R, which is forward-looking infrared radar. And the other one is called the Gimbal video. And gimbal apparently is like a, spinning top like in Inception, the one that didn't fall over.
Well, a gimbal is the thing that typically holds a camera and keeps it steady.
Oh, well, it's a spinning top. Basically, it's like your stereotypical UFO type thing.
Okay.
So they're the three videos that were released and acknowledged as being declassified is the word I'm looking for, and acknowledged as being authentic. But what's interesting about them is there is no, despite how they move and the fact that they move incredibly fast, there's no sign of any propulsion anywhere in them. And like everything on Earth has some form of either rotors or propulsion. And it's like, it's such a basic kind of, fuel goes in and fire goes out the back and that's how you move kind of thing. This thing definitely moves somehow different.
It didn't appear to have any propulsion or...
Well, it definitely didn't. It's an active fact that it didn't, because if it did, with the different cameras and spectrums that they caught it on, they would have seen it if it was there. And it's a matter of fact that it wasn't. So even the guy was saying at the time, it's like, it's weird that we saw this thing and it was kind of like, well, that's kind of an oddity, and then they went about their day. But he was saying, if they had seen a Russian flag on the side or a Chinese flag, hey presto, money, no object, all military, mobilized. We got to know what this is. Yeah. But when it wasn't, and it was like, whatever it is, it's not our concern right now. We got a war to go to, and we don't have time for this. They just went on about it. And weirdly, because that, by the way, this isn't an oddity. Apparently, this has been especially in the Navy for some reason for a long time, I'd say, where they would see something and even visually catch it, and then just, land back at the base and be like, well, we're going to file a report, but are you going to shout out about this?
I imagine it's probably because the Navy are on the ocean a lot, and the ocean has better view lines, and on top of that, most of our planet is ocean. So if you're going to see something like that, the odds are...
Well, I wonder, because I do wonder, is it that they're mostly out in the ocean, and therefore that's where they're seen? Or is it that they're mostly out in the ocean, and is it that that's where a lot of military exercises happen with this kind of stuff going on?
Yeah.
And that's where
the military are. But the Navy, and they're scanning those areas.
Exactly. Is that where there's better radar kind of capture and stuff?
Yeah.
But really interesting, right? That was this happened in 2004, right? The newspaper article came out in 2017, but this happened in 2004. A decade later, there's another guy, Ryan Graves, right? And he was just, at the time, he was just a pilot. And he, as they're building new planes, all the new planes get all the cool new stuff. And then they will retrofit the older planes with that cool new stuff as well. So he was out with his squad, and they were doing loads of flights and exercises and stuff. And then they had a couple of months of a break when they were upgrading the radar on their planes. And then they went out again with this newer radar. And suddenly they were like, holy moly, there's dots everywhere. What the hell is, and they automatically assume, there's clearly something wrong with this fandangled new radar that's not working right. And they landed back, and they were talking to the kind of central cruiser that does all the radar scanning. They were going, we've been seeing this thing for months. Well, these things for months. So at one point, they actually nearly had the mid-air collision with one, because even though you'd imagine planes are flying around the sky, they're just going everywhere. Actually, well, obviously it's very controlled, but they have an airspace, which is like a big sector that's their airspace that they're doing their exercise in. And they have a kind of an entry and an exit point to that airspace in one specific kind of part of the sky, I guess. And as they were, two planes were exiting, and they flew right past one of these things. And I don't know how close these planes go together. It would sound like a lot, like 100 feet or something. But in flying at hundreds of miles an hour, that's very close. Yeah. But this thing was within 50 feet away from them, in between them, as they passed it. And they actually did manage to get a good look at it. And the way they describe this thing is weird. And there's multiple sightings of these things, by the way. And this guy, Ryan Graves, he went on to become an aviation safety, inspector or something. And he really started pushing for, I don't really care what these things are. All I care about is, my job is to keep the plane safe. And these things are out there, and we don't know what they are. And they're in our airspace. And we nearly crashed against one. We got to do something about it. We should at least look into it enough to know what the hell they are. But the things that they saw there were, because there's multiple different kind of sightings, I'm using air quotes here, of different types of alien ships that have been seen over the years. And I'm not going to go into all of them. Not that there's actually not that many, but the TicTac is one that's very specific. The gimbal is what you'd consider, Ed Wood, Plan 9 from outer space. Yeah. That's your stereotypical flying saucer. And this thing it's a translucent kind of a sphere with a black or a kind of a grey.
Can you bring up
cube.
A picture of it?
Well, I can, and it'll be interesting for YouTube, but it'll really be boring for everybody listening. But hang on, I'll see.
It's mad that there's multiple types that have been multiply reported by different people. That's fascinating to me.
Yeah.
Because,
I'll tell you what, though, I'm going to let you Google it, because I'm just don't want to lose my flow and keep every listener really bored. Yep. If you just look up UFO translucent sphere, it'll probably find something like it. But yeah, so this is very interesting to me that, well, I guess, again, it's another level of a credible witness and multiple sightings and captured with multiple instruments. And to me, that level of criteria is what makes a UFO sighting interesting. You know, somebody saying they saw something in the sky out the backyard, maybe not interested, because there's thousands of those claims over decades. But, you know, someone who kind of has a lot to lose with, you know, by you know, and let me give an example, right? Because these people have, I guess, reputations, and your reputation can be damaged and all. But I think, by the way, where I'm going with all of this, I think that all this UFO stuff is being taken more seriously, really only since 2017. And I think that it's going to be relatively near, maybe in the next few years, you're going to start hearing or seeing a little bit more official acknowledgements coming out. This is only my own personal opinion now, but from listening and seeing how things are going, I think that that's going to be the case. Because when the 27 article came out, I guess the Senate in America were kind of like, wait a minute, we're spending money on this, and well, why don't we know about this? So it kind of became a bit, there are multiple senators now who are really putting the foot down saying, I don't know if they're real or not, but I want to know, and I want to know where's this money coming from, and why don't I know about it? And I think it's a bit of a snub to them to find out this is happening in your house under your nose and you don't know about it, you know, making a fool of you. But I think what happened is all this UFO stuff. I'm sure you've all heard of Roswell.
Yes.
The crash in 1947, alleged crash in 1947. That kind of really started it all off. And unfortunately, that happened to be right at the start of the Cold War, 2 years after World War One. Two. And all of a sudden, you know, there was this huge big, you know, the Russia, who were America's allies, are now, you know, becoming the big bad. And so suddenly when there's a crash and it's all been, you know, alleged crash, there's a lot of secrecy about, we don't want to acknowledge what it is and all that kind of stuff. So I don't know where to go next because I'm kind of going off tangent a bit, but I guess basically what I'm saying is from the 40s until, I would say, probably the fall of the Berlin Wall, there was a huge push to really repress and keep secret any talk of UFOs. Whether they're real or not doesn't matter. We can't have people worrying about what's in the sky kind of thing. And the American government had a totally secret, off the books kind of this is real X-Files stuff, but it's actually 100% true. They had a agency or a project, I guess, that was headed up by a guy, and he was tasked with do research and investigate every UFO claim that you come across, but debunk them all. Your job isn't to investigate them. Your job is to say you investigated them and say that it's nothing. He's the guy who famously, because there was a huge UFO sighting over Michigan, there was like, I don't know, loads of them. There's hundreds of witnesses. There's like Air Force people, the governor who later on went on to be president. Loads of, you know, there's obviously a lot of, you know, what I call normal people, which I equate to not a credible witness. But there were a lot of credible witnesses, and even just the sheer volume of them as well kind of lends itself to something. This guy came up, and I don't know if I said, the project that he was heading was called Project Blue Book, and it ran on for something like 20 or 30 years. And he just debunked everything constantly. That was his job. And when the whole sighting over Michigan came, he just said, and he coined, I think, the phrase which became famous and used in Men in Black with Will Smith. It's like, oh yeah, no, that was just swamp gas that you saw and you thought it was spaceships. But he, afterwards, when he retired from Project Blue Book and he was in his golden years, he looked back and he was like, yeah, no, they're totally real. 100%. What I've seen, what I know, definitely, you know, he because he was kind of, I guess, under a contract and all, he kept doing what he was doing. Yeah. But afterwards, when he was out of the thing, he acknowledged that the UFOs there's definitely more to it, at least.
And it's fascinating stuff. And stuff I didn't know because I misunderstood the brief. I didn't actually look up UFOs. I looked up aliens. So, but it does tie in, obviously, because you know, who the hell is driving these things? So the thing about it is that, and I don't know if this is okay for me to...
Oh, please do. Yeah, sorry. I know I'm hijacking this episode completely. No, I don't really want to.
And it's fascinating because for the simple reason that, what are the odds? The odds are actually astronomically teeny tiny that the UFOs have aliens in them from another planet. So scientists think right now that there are about 60 billion planets in our galaxy that could have life on them. They reckon that their best guess at the universe is that there are 50 sextillion planets that may have life on them. Right? Now, sextillion, for anyone who doesn't know, that's a 1 with 36 zeros at the end of it.
Did you hear that, Mart?
Very nice.
Yeah, so there's a huge amount of planets, a massively, ridiculously huge amount of planets that might have life on them, right? But here's the thing. The universe is 26.7 billion years old. Again, that's what they think it is now. 26.7 billion years old. From the time of the Big Bang, just a scant 30 million years after that, which isn't even a drop in the ocean of 26.7 billion.
You know, that's even new because the universe, until really, really recently, they thought it was only half that.
Yeah, half that.
And I was like...
That's really new, yeah. I try and stay up to date, you know.
Very good.
But, yeah, so 30 million years after the Big Bang is when they think that life could have started. That a planet may have formed life on it. So that's nothing in the terms of 26.7 billion years. Okay, we as humans have only been around for 300,000 years, which is literally nothing, and only for the last, I don't know what of that have we actually been able to write things down and record stuff. So the odds that a civilization hasn't happened on another planet, lived, died, and their planet disappeared or got hit by a comet or whatever it is, and then that they became technologically advanced enough to be able to travel the stars and find us on our planet is infinitesimally small. The odds of it are so tiny, tiny, tiny.
I would say if it was a case that we are the only life, then I would be thinking, yeah, this is definitely simulation. 100%. There's no way it didn't happen. Although there's things like the Drake equation where some guy called Drake came up with math and he said, hey, look, you know, this planet is got
that's where I got the numbers for the amount of planets in our galaxy.
I always have a problem with the Drake equation, though, and this is just me now, but...
You should stick to just doing music.
No, because AI can do his music now anyway.
Oh, yeah, true.
But he's extrapolating from one data point. He can say there's X amount of exoplanets and all that kind of stuff, and that's a number that's there and true, or at least estimated.
Actually, wait, go back a step. Explain a little bit about the Drake equation.
Oh, sorry. Okay, the Drake equation is where there's this guy. Actually, I think he's the founder of SETI. He said if there are, I don't know, let's say whatever trillions of planets that Barry said there exist in the universe, therefore, you know, our planet has life on it, and therefore there must be life on X percent of other planets.
Yeah.
And if you take a percent of that big number, then that means that there's hundreds of millions of other aliens.
No.
But the problem is, he's extrapolating all of that from one data point. You can't. That's mathematically inaccurate.
What's the data point? Us.
Yeah. All he knows is life formed once, and there's loads of other planets, therefore it formed there too.
Yeah.
That's a leap.
Is he saying there's definitely life there, or was he just saying there's the possibility of life?
It's only a possibility. It's only a possibility.
I mean, obviously it's only a possibility, but is his posit that 100% I'm saying that there has to be life on these planets? Is he saying that the odds, or...
See, put it this way. If you said, well, there's so many planets, the odds are there's life on some of them.
Yeah.
That's perfectly valid to say.
Yes.
But if you say, I estimate that the percentage possibility of life forming on a planet is 0.1%, and there's trillions of planets, therefore there's hundreds of millions of them that have life on them.
Yeah.
Along that kind of
train of thought,
one step is made up.
Yeah.
And that is the percentage probability that life can form on a planet that is habitable.
And that's the thing, not only does life have to form, because life, of course, if you ask a NASA scientist, life is, that glass of water you're about to sip from now, Mart, is full of it. Billions and billions upon life in that glass of water, yeah. And that's life. That's what it's made up of. So, yes, billions of planets might have life on them, but it's life, Jim, but not as we know it. And then we have to look at the odds of them developing the same way we did, more or less, that they can, communicate and build things and do stuff, and then that they did it around the same time we did in the history of 26.7 billion years, that they haven't come and gone, or they've yet to come. There might be a planet out there that has, they're just now genetically forming into something that can speak, or posit thoughts to each other. They could be millions of years behind where we are right now. So the odds of them, but of course, they must be way more advanced than us because they're able to build these amazing TicTac ships.
TicTac.
TicTac, thank you. TicTac ships and square ships and translucent ships and spheres and all this kind of stuff and visit Earth. And then you've got to go down the road of why would they visit us? I mean, you could say, oh, maybe we have resources that they want or something like that. But if they did, they seem to have the technology they could come and take it.
Any resource on Earth is plentiful everywhere else in the universe.
This is it, like.
Remember the movie Signs, where it was like a really good movie where with the Greys visited, and they came here to take our water. You find an asteroid or find
literally
like Europa.
Europa is
water,
just nothing. There's a ton of water. A ton. Yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot of water.
One ton.
I mean, if you look at the way we are, if you look at our human history, aliens would go. I mean, you can imagine them having the conversation. Oh, we want to meet them and bring them, and we'll integrate them into the Federation of Planets. And then it's like, because nothing bad could possibly come of that of bringing humans to our resource-rich planet.
But the way I see it, Barry, is like, think of this, right? If you look on Earth, every stupid little anthill with some weird ant in it, there's some, I don't know, science guy, science nerd, who wants to go and study them and research them. There's people who go live with gorillas and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, but they're not researching us. They're joyriding.
Well,
they're pulling donuts over the Pacific. Like.
I mean, it's so interesting. All right, but let me tell you, because I'll come back to that. There is a speculation as to why they are here, I guess. But before I go there, I'm going to say what really I find interesting is if you look at the history of all UFO things. One of the stories that's very, very famous in UFOlogy, like the big ones are Roswell. Obviously, there's the David Fravor incident now, the Nimitz one. And another, probably the next biggest after Roswell, was in 1988. There's a guy called Bob Lazar. I don't know if you ever heard of Bob Lazar?
Nope.
Have you ever heard of Area 51?
Yes.
The reason you know of Area 51 is Bob Lazar.
Oh, I thought it was because of Roswell.
Nope. Because Area 51 might have been built because of Roswell. But the reason you know about it isn't because of Roswell. There's this guy, right? And basically, this is the 80s. He is a kind of a weird, quirky scientist guy. And he's weird and quirky. He did stupid things like put a jet engine on the back of a car. And he was interested in propulsion kind of stuff. And he was able to drive it around kind of thing.
Right.
But anyway.
Really fast. Once.
Yeah. Well, no, he had it working. But ultimately, right, I'll start at the bit that we heard about him. He went to the press and he told a journalist, listen, I got a story to tell you. And the reason I'm telling you is I fear for my life. So he was saying he was hired by a secret government agency. They were collecting him in a bus while he had to go to a certain area of the desert, and him and a few other people would get put in a bus, driven out to this secret military base that exists in the desert that no one knows about, and he was out there working on alien spaceships. He saw them. Some of them were actually, the humans were able to fly them around, and his job was to work and try to figure out the propulsion system. So this was a story, and he was working on it, but then he started getting worried that he found out, I think, that they were tapping his house, they were tapping his phones or something. So he thought, oh, they're on to me. So really quickly, he found all his friends. He said, listen, guys, I got something to tell you. I'm doing all this thing. I'm working in this base. I'm scared they're going to kill me. So if I disappear, this is where I was. Just tell someone, right? And he actually drove them out to Area 51. And back then, the fence was kind of closer to where stuff is happening. Since then, because of this, they've moved the fence way, way back. He drove out and they parked up and said, now, watch this, guys. You'll see these things. And they saw these weird things flying around. And he went there 3 weeks in a row because they did it like 8 o'clock on a Wednesday or something like that. They went there regularly. So he knew the times that they were practicing flying these things. But on the third time, a bunch of men in black suits showed up and arrested him. Now, what had actually happened was, I guess allegedly, he was working there, But his wife, because he's obviously going off in this secret job that he can't tell anyone about, he was like telling his wife, well, dear, I got to go do my secret job, so I won't see you for a while. And she just started cheating on him with her flight instructor or something. So the guys running the base were thinking, okay, we need our guys to be, emotionally stable and have a stable home life and all. So they got worried about him because of the wife cheating, because they knew the wife was cheating because they had, they know these things. So they started really tapping his phones and following him and everything just to keep an eye on him. And he twigged this and he thought, oh my God, they're going to kill me. So he went to the press. But basically he went to the press. He told this redonkulous, crazy, it's so over the top, ridiculously unbelievable story. And of course it was like, bit of a funny news kind of thing. And then alien kind of UFO people were really latched onto this for 30 years thinking, yes, this is proof, see. But I never believed it, because how could you believe, if some guy said, we caught something on film or something, that's wow. But he went all in. The stretch was too much to try to believe that, we have the ships, some of them are flying, we have the materials, we practiced hang on, no. Go on. The story was just too much of a stretch for me. But then, as it turns out, 30 years later, and he never changed his story for 30 years. He always was basically, look, this is what happened. But the thing is, he wasn't, because again, you see, a lot of this stuff is, you say a crazy story, I got abducted by aliens, something stupid like that, and then you go write a book, you do the book tour, you go on, TV appearances. This guy did not want any of that. He never wrote anything, didn't do books, didn't do nothing. And he, at the time, told his story when he thought they were going to kill him. And I think he really went into detail with this particular journalist at the time.
Okay.
And the journalist, actually, his name is George Knapp. He was so intrigued by this, because from his point of view, it's like, okay, this guy's either lying or telling the truth, and this is the most amazing story ever, and it's literally earth-shatteringly huge, and he believed it, and he just dedicated the rest of his career to trying to figure out this whole alien stuff. That's all he does now. George Knapp, if you look him up, he's just a kind of alien journalist guy. But anyway, this whole Bob Lazar story, he went into so much detail he was really so specific. And at the time, it was so ridiculously fantastical. But now, over the last 30 years, so much stuff, you look back on it and go, okay, that's actually credible now. I'll give an example. One of the things he said was, and again, he was so specific in everything he said. He was saying the base had this kind of a special way of entering, where you would put your hand on a scanner and it would scan your hand, but it wouldn't scan your fingerprints or anything like that. It would put a light through your hand and read the bone density in your hand, and that would be your pass code to get into the base. And at the time, of course, that sounded ridiculous, but 20 or 25 years later or something, the military released, yeah, fine, actually we do have that technology, and that's what we do use at secret installations. That literally is exactly what it is, and it's exactly how he described it at the time. So immediately, what was kind of a stretch to believe, that kind of a little grain of sand to be like,
okay, yeah,
that kind of seems believable. But of course, the military immediately turned around and said, nah, this guy, never heard him before in his life. And they denied that he was ever there, that he had nothing. So one time, George Knapp went out with him, and there was no evidence of him in the HR records or anything, but he was walking through the place and he recognized people, they recognized him, and they found an old kind of a phone directory, a company phone directory, and he was on it. So that shows not only that he really was there, working there, but also that the military then turned around and deleted everything and tried to cover it up. So, and again, this is the 80s. This is before the fall of the Berlin Wall. Covering up everything UFO was par for the course. So straight away, that's it's very telling, I think, that he already knew this. But then all that tells you is, yep, he really worked in Area 51. That doesn't actually tell you that he was working on alien spaceships like he was claiming that he did. And according to him, he was, again, so specific about everything. And he's drawn the craft in minute detail, inside and out. Stereotypical UFO. See, this is the thing. Hollywood has almost done a disservice to, if there are really UFOs, because if ever is revealed, what do you know? UFOs are real, and we have one, and look at it. It is going to look like something out of that stupid Ed Wood movie, Plan 9 from Outer Space. Well, there's a flying saucer, literally.
But probably without the windows.
Well,
You
yeah.
see, but there's a lot to unwrap and everything you just talked about there. But like, if you were the military, wouldn't you say, oh yeah, there's a spaceship and the spaceship looks like this spaceship looks like a UFO, or a typical
Flying saucer.
flying
Wait, are you
saucer.
saying would the military do full disclosure?
No, I'm saying the military would say, oh yeah, that is what it's like, so that you'll get the kooks going.
I know what you're saying. What you're saying is it's almost beneficial for the military that Hollywood makes, movies and things of these, so that if someone says, "Hey, I saw a UFO and it looks just like the movie last week," everyone's going to say, "Yeah, you just saw the movie."
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. That's why. Do you ever watch the movie, the TV show Stargate? SG-1.
Yes. Oh yeah.
Well,
I even remember the
there was
episode.
one. Basically, again, this is a fictional TV show, but they had this secret military thing going on, and then they deliberately revealed some kind of a hints to a TV show to let the TV show make a fake TV show of this secret project, so that if any details of the project ever got out, people would just be like, "Yeah, no, that's a TV show." So anyway, but the interesting thing about Bob Lazar,
Ryan and
and
Sarah there.
more stuff to Bob Lazar that again makes me think, oh, okay, that seems to make sense now. He was really, really specific in how these things worked. And again, remember, he was hired because he's a propulsion expert. And they told him, go in there and try to figure out how that thing flies, because we don't know. And because obviously they're trying to back engineer it. And he was so specific at describing how the saucer on the bottom part has these three kind of big rods. And the rods can bend either way, depending which makes it go left or right or up or down or whatever. But he was saying when it wants to go really fast in a distance, what it does is it turns on its side, and then the rods go a certain way, and it bends space-time in front of it and falls into that space. And that's how it's able to move incredibly fast. And that's what's interesting about one of the movies, the films that's been caught by the military nose cam thingy of a fighter jet, is the Gimbal movie. It's flying around, and it is a stereotypical flying saucer shaped thing. Then it turns on its side and goes exactly what Bob Lazar 30 years ago said. This is how they move, and this is how it'll have to go on its side, because that's how it flies that way. And another thing he described, and this has been up, there's people who claim to have certain materials of crashed ships, and the metallurgists who've had a chance to look at it kind of thing, basically they've described it as being, and again, Bob Lazar described all this in the 80s, that it's almost like it's 3D printed, but at the atomic level. Now that is like not the molecular level, go even smaller again, the atomic level. The surface is 3D printed with at the atomic level, like that, layered. And the way Bob Lazar was talking about it, for some reason he's like, it has to be layered like this. This is just what I know because of whatever. But that's the thing that's interesting to me. He's talking about 3D printing of stuff
40 years ago.
40 years ago. Well, yeah, and it's just all the things that he was talking about, which at the time were just off the wall. I mean, even for me, I was like, nah, I mean, this is just a bridge too far. It's just ridiculous. Much as I would, and again, I'm always intrigued and excited by it, because I'm like, yeah, but imagine, maybe, it's so cool. But at the same time, no, I just don't buy any of that. But definitely since the whole David Fravor thing, I'm like, I mean, but it's still not bought in. Go on.
So, now let's ask the question again. But we never actually asked you. Do you think...
Yeah, but he answered. We didn't, because he answered it himself just as soon as he asked us.
Yeah,
he did answer
but
it
let's
himself.
ask it again, just for clarity. What was the question exactly? Did we believe in...
Well, what I was asking you is not, do you believe
that
that
UFOs...
intelligent life is visiting Earth
Okay,
now?
Oh, still no.
Mart?
Oh, well, I'll tell you. Because again, UFO, TicTac, flying around, doing things we can't explain. That is just a technology we can't explain. There's one other big event that happened, and this only happened a month ago. I wanted to do this episode for the last couple of episodes, and I'm glad I didn't, because that would have been a big reveal that was missed out on. There is a guy called David Grusch. He is one of the most senior people in the intelligence circles in America. He was working on, I told you that there was a...
the Blue Book or something.
Well, no, Blue Book was in the 50s, 60s, 70s,
Oh, yeah.
and that was actively, your job is debunk all findings.
Oh, yeah, okay.
And since then, there was another one for like 5 or 6 or 7 years. Then there was another one for 10 years. Then there was that secret one that got busted by the New York Times. And that one that got busted by the New York Times, that's the interesting one, because there was a guy who headed that, and by now, remember, this is the 2000s. This isn't, the Cold War anymore. That whole secrecy thing just wasn't there anymore. Funny enough, that secrecy got replaced by apathy. It was like, suddenly, we don't need to really keep it secret anymore. Nobody cares.
Nobody
and
cares.
That's exactly what happened. Nobody cared when a pilot came back and said, I have this on film. It jammed my radar. I got it on a infrared. I got it on a radar. I saw it.
Kim Kardashian balanced a glass of champagne in her ass.
Exactly. It's just, it literally did get that way.
Yeah.
But like even Ryan Graves comes back and says, I'm filing dozens of reports. And he told all of his pilots, file a report every single time you see one of these. We need to, and like their approach is, well, Ryan Graves especially is, I kind of don't care what it is. I care that it's there. And again, he's just saying, and this is definitely true still. It's like, there is something there. I think you definitely can't deny that. You can say, well, clearly it's not aliens coming from another planet and flying around here. But it's something.
It's definitely
something. And it's something that's acting in a way that we can't explain using technology that seems to be beyond anything we have. But all he's saying is, go and look. And the problem is, and this is what kills me, right? Everybody, well, not everybody. I've heard this argument made repeatedly, even by Elon Musk, even by Neil deGrasse Tyson, right? Oh yeah, sure, there's aliens flying everywhere. And then the minute everyone has a, 20 million megapixel camera in every single pocket on every human on Earth, all of a sudden we're the aliens. They're not there anymore, so you can't grab a good picture. So all the pictures you have are crappy,
argument.
grainy crap from the 50s. No, it isn't. It's the most ridiculous. And I honestly, when I heard Neil deGrasse Tyson say it, I was like, you're being intellectually dishonest. I reckon you have another agenda here. He definitely, well, all I think is that Neil deGrasse Tyson's like talking to a Mormon. He's got a path he's going to preach to you on, and he can't go off it for a second and talk about anything else. But basically, remember, this isn't some random act of nature like a volcano. That's just something that's just in the sky. These are intelligently controlled. I definitely believe that. All the evidence suggests that. They're flying around in the 50s when someone has a camera that they can wait there while I, hold it here for 30 seconds and let it develop, So they know we can fly over this guy's barn house and do whatever we like. Then, time goes on and they're not like hidden away somewhere and they have no idea they're obviously observing us if this is real and true and there are aliens and they are here. And they know what level of technology we are at. So they realize, okay, now there's better cameras. We better start doing a bit better on hiding. Now, definitely there are cases, like I think the TicTac, it's as if, because again, I'm guessing these aliens, if there are really aliens, and there's some intelligence there, but there's not like some hive mind. Probably they're like, right lads, cop on now. We got to stay a bit more hidden. And suddenly some asshole
doing
goes,
donuts.
Yes,
doing donuts
and
over
some
the Pacific.
asshole alien goes flying off after a pilot. And it's like,
I was bored.
Yeah. So I do think that's why. All of a sudden, where are all the good pictures? Because every picture is all terrible. But the thing is, these pictures that have been released by the Pentagon, and I should say, something being classified or not classified. Let's say an F-18 Hornet was flying over Galway and it took a picture of Shop Street. Well, that image is now classified. It's not that there's some secret thing about Shop Street or that there was something secret on it at the time. It's more the technology that took the picture. If you release that picture to the public and say, hey, look at the picture of Shop Street that was taken by this warplane. Now the Russian will say, so I can see that warplane has this kind of resolution and it can do this. So that's what classifying something means. And of course, it's not like the military look at every single image and say, let's not classify that one. Yeah, let's classify that. They just say, everything's classified because it's just easier, path of least resistance. So for something to get declassified doesn't necessarily mean it's secret or anything. It's just, somebody has to sit down and allow it out. And basically, the 3 images or videos that got declassified, that's kind of actually, I'll tell you, because it's a crazy-ass story, even though it isn't necessary to this, UFO thing, right? There is a band called Blink-182.
Yes.
And there is a lead singer of that band. I can't remember his name now. He, the way he tells it, he's like, he was always into UFOs anyway, but he's, traveling from gig to gig back in the day, and this is back before internets and phones and all, so he would just be reading books all the time. So what is he interested in? UFOs. So he reads all about UFOs. Now this guy went fully down the rabbit hole, and to hear him talk, he was onto something with UFOs, but he is buying into every other conspiracy theory ever, so it almost doesn't do it. But anyway, he set up a company, It's the To the Stars Academy. And I'm not going to go into the detail, but long and the short, he was thinking, I will do movies and stuff, fictional movies that will prepare people for when this reveal, because he believes there's going to be a big disclosure when all the information of UFOs will be revealed by the government and we'll all know they're there and all that. So he was preparing for this. But as he had this To the Stars Academy thing set up, the guy who ran the UFO research thing that got revealed by the New York Times in 2017, his name is Lou Elizondo. He was kind of getting frustrated by, because already that thing was funded 22 million quid, right? Which, for a couple of years to research UFOs, 22 million quid is peanuts, really and truly nothing. So he was frustrated that I don't have the resources to do this right, and yet what I'm seeing, this shit's worth investigating at least. And he's coming at this from this is the thing, the Americans are coming at this from a national security perspective. They're not coming at it from a scientific knowledge or an intellectual curiosity. They're like, what's the threat? This is a threat. We got to get ready for it. And this guy, Lou Elizondo, managed to totally officially, and didn't do anything wrong, request that these 3 videos get declassified. And he was saying, it just literally put in the request one evening, boom, they're declassified the next morning. So he reckons, or I don't know who was saying it, not him, but it must be that some, intern in the Pentagon was just like, yeah, okay, and declassify them. That's not official at all. But basically, he snuck it out the front door, totally officially. They got declassified very suddenly when he just asked, and he just grabbed them and gave them to the Stars Academy, and they released them on the internet. And that's what got to the New York Times attention, and that's what got them out there 15 years after the fact. So it's such a random kind of a story to have happened. But so I guess I reckon already, if you were to tell me, I was starting to talk about David Grusch, right? So David Grusch is this super senior intelligence official who was working with this, I guess, alien UFO investigation agency for a number of years, and there's something very significant. He just basically went to the press and said, hey, everyone, we have UFOs. We have 9, I don't know, is it 9 of them or 12 of them, he said. I think we have 12 UFOs. Some of them are functional. We have wreckages of others. And we have alien bodies. So he has gone all in the most crazy-ass, unbelievable story you ever heard.
Yes.
And again, I'm listening to this and like, it just seems so over the top.
Yeah.
But the thing is, there's at least a dozen other senior officials who aren't saying, yeah, he's telling the truth, but they're all saying this guy's, reputation is beyond reproach. He absolutely isn't he's not the type to be coming up with flights of fancy. And again, it's like, let's say Edward Snowden, right? He was working for the NSA. He saw something and thought, the people should know this. So he went to the public and was a whistleblower. And when he was, what happened to him?
Yeah.
He's living in Russia now. He had to become a Russian citizen because he could never go back to his luxury mansion that he had in his comfortable life in America. He threw all that away and burned his life down to tell the world what he thought the world should know. So, that's why I can see why people know this stuff and don't want to talk about it. But, and this is why I'm kind of saying, a lot of things are lining up now to make it look like more is going to come out. And only last year, the American government passed a whistleblower act for UFOs. And again, just the fact of, yes, the Senate in America are passing laws about UFOs now. That's happening on the regular. They made a law to say, if you know anything about UFOs or ships or bodies or any of that crap, come forward, tell us it's okay. And he had gone to the UFO researching agency and told them, by the way, he went to the agency first. They didn't publish it to the Senate. So he went directly to the Senate and said, guys, I told them this. They're not listening. I'm telling you now. And they were going to go, well, we'll put the wheels in motion and all. But then he started getting nervous for his own safety. So he just went to the public and just said it to the media. And again, because of the Whistleblower Act, he's safe in doing that. Unlike, Edward Snowden, where there wasn't a Whistleblower Act and he burned down his life to do it. So this guy, when I listen to him talk, I'm thinking, again, what is he? Totally full of shit and just decides to totally throw away his entire life to say stupid stuff. And, if that's what he's doing, I in no way see how, I can't join the dots to understand.
Why?
Why would anyone do that? And again, all that does is reframe in my life all these other things I heard that I dismissed. Because it would make you think, right? Let's say UFOs are real. Let's say there really was a crash in Roswell and they really got an alien spaceship. Why hasn't anyone else spoken about it? Like,
And this is the problem with nearly every conspiracy theory, is that, the best way to keep a secret is not to tell anyone. If you've got more than one person that knows something, then 3 people are going to know, and then 4, and it's exponential. You got government employees, thousands of them, over the last, 60, 70 years, working on these secret projects, and not a single one of them has ever secretly released the information, or, it is very hard to believe that would happen, that there'd be no one in 70 years of the thousands of people that would have worked on these different projects and stuff, wouldn't have come out and said, well, actually the government are actually paying us to debunk every single UFO sighting.
no, I'm going to just give you the counter to that, because for starters, I'm going to say, because the whole, in my mind is always Bill Clinton, Monica Lewinsky. There was 2 people in that room. How the hell did the whole world find out? Jesus, and both of them was in their interest to shut the hell up. So,
point, actually.
Once 2 people know it, it's going to get out, right? Yeah. That's the old thing about every conspiracy theory and everything. But then again, the stealth bomber, I can't remember what it's called.
The SR-71 Blackbird.
There was something like 227,000 people worked on that project. Not one of them leaked anything.
That's true.
So, now again,
the Manhattan Project.
The Manhattan Project's even bigger. Yeah.
And again, you could say, though, that SR-71
Blackbird.
Yes. If they had been told, keep that secret for 80 years, someone would have let it out. But the thing is, there's literally hundreds of people on their deathbed, people who are retired and decided, what, I've lived my life, my career's over now. Anyway, I'm old, I'm going to just say it. Fuck it. We have aliens. We have bodies. And everyone's like, he used to be a good intelligence officer. Look at him now. What a pity. It's like no one believed it. Yeah. And it happened hundreds of times. So, and again, I didn't believe any of that crap either. When I heard all this stuff, I'd be like, I've watched one too many episodes of the X-Files.
Okay, so wait a second. So what's the turning point that makes you go, okay, maybe this is believed? What happened? You said this happened last month. What happened a month ago?
Well, the turning point for me is the Nimitz incident, right? The USS Nimitz, the fighter jets on that aircraft carrier caught basically video footage of aliens, and multiple Top Gun pilots, like half a dozen or more, all saw it with their eyes, caught it on radar, caught it on infrared, caught it on camera, multiple different instrumentation, all captured it. So whatever it was, it didn't move like any technology known to man or one, and it's undeniably real, and it happened, and there's no 2 ways about that. So either the Russians or Chinese have invented a gravity bending space-time aerial vehicle, and not just invented it last week, invented it at least 20 years ago. And see, this is the thing, right? Let's say no one ever saw anything like this ever, and then somebody caught it on camera last week. Yeah, the US military have new stuff. Well, all militaries in the world have new stuff all the time. When the Blackbird thingy was out first, nobody knew. I guarantee you that
Can I interject on that? Because obviously, as soon as you mentioned it, I was able to name the plane. I know the plane.
Yes.
I was big into airplanes when I was younger, and I used to get magazines called Takeoff every month, I think.
I remember it well, right?
And the SR-71 Blackbird featured in one of them. It's the one that stood out. I bought hundreds of these magazines and thousands of planes. The SR-71 Blackbird is the one that stood out and stuck in my mind for the simple reason that the magazine sort of made it out like, look at this amazing plane that the Americans had. And would have been in the early 90s, I guess. It was decommissioned after the Vietnam War.
What?
The SR-71 Blackbird was decommissioned after the Vietnam War. Now, I might be misremembering this, but this is how it is in my head. And was recommissioned or taken out of retirement, I guess, for the first Gulf War in 1990. So not only did they have that incredible technology, but they said, "Oh yeah, look at this! This is amazing technology that they have." They had it for 20 years at that point, and it's so long that they had just gone, we don't really need it anymore. We decommission it now, and so.
Yeah, and I mean that's the thing. Technological progress isn't like Mr. Data in Star Trek. It's like there's no Android anywhere, and then someone built an Android. That
Yeah,
would
that
never
does- that
happen in
doesn't
real
happen,
life. All technological progress is this gradual line graph up.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
a step.
yeah.
Incrementally, and I see further than others because I stand on the shoulders of giants, kind of thing. There's no. I'm going to say it. I think anyway that there's no way possible that anyone had any sort of a gravitational bending engine in, say, the 50s or 60s or 70s. If you were to tell me that someone has one now, okay, maybe it was invented. I don't know. Maybe there's a gradual incline to that level of technology that we don't know about yet. But if that was around 60 years ago, we would have seen some other offshoots of that technology in other aspects of life today.
Yes, exactly. Like that dude, what did you say his name was? Lazar?
Bob
is it?
Lazar, yeah.
He came out in the 80s and said that, but he said he worked, when had he worked in
Well,
Roswell?
he literally came out in 1988. He was working there at that time, and he came out
okay,
because
okay.
it was like, oh my God, they're going to kill
Yeah,
me.
okay, so it was in the 80s he was looking at this stuff.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, exactly.
For some reason, anytime someone mentions Roswell, I always think they worked there in the 50s. Do you know,
Yeah,
the 60s.
no, but this is, in fact, the ship that he says he worked on, he says it was caught, that they found it in an archaeological dig, whatever.
Right, okay.
But the thing about Roswell that I find weird then is, because again, I always by default assumed, well, Roswell is obviously a story. There's like, and every July there's a big party in Roswell because that's the anniversary of 47 kind of thing. But it's like, now I'm looking back going, oh, I mean, if Bob Lazar is telling that crazy story and now David Grusch is coming out, I mean, if they have a spaceship, then surely probably one of them is the one that crashed in Roswell. And the interesting thing about what David Grusch said, and again, one notable thing about David Grusch, right? He's the intelligence officer guy, and he's a super senior intelligence official. He's not just some guy, but he has basically told Congress, listen, this stuff's happening under your noses, under black budgets. But by the way, Barry, sorry, I was going to say, you were talking about how there's thousands of government officials and all. There absolutely isn't. Because this is the thing about, if there are crashed spaceships and all this that are hidden somewhere, they're actually not hidden in a government bunker anywhere. And it's not government officials that are working on it. Surely there's some are. But allegedly, some of them are being given out to the aviation companies that work for the military in America, like Lockheed Martin and Boeing and all. So if there is a secret spaceship somewhere that, the government found or retrieved somewhere, they have given them to these companies and said, you're building us our military vehicles, figure that out. And the biggest problem, and this is why David Grusch, for example, and this is why Bob Lazar always said, the biggest problem with the way that they're trying to research this stuff is they're doing it in siloed ways. So there was him and one other guy trying to figure out the propulsion. Only him and one other guy. And he came in to replace, apparently, the two people before them when they cut into some part of the propulsion system and it exploded and killed them. So, no, allegedly. Yeah. I don't know. I don't even know if that's true. But Bob Lazar says there was only him and one other guy, and he's going and there were other people working on compartmentalized completely. He's saying there's other people who are working on the metallurgy side of it, and there's other people working on the body.
And presumably they're only given,
but they're only given the bit that you need to know, or at least the bit that some, government official thinks you need to know to figure out the engine.
And presumably it's probably the same thing then with the likes of Lockheed Martin. They'd be given just a certain amount of it
and definitely not many people know about it. Not many people get access to it. And that's the literal opposite of how science works. Science works with collaboration. You do a little finding, you publish it, other scientists read it, they have their own thoughts, they'll take that and run with it, and they might progress incrementally that step beyond that you couldn't make. Whereas if you're just one person or two people in a room trying to figure out all by yourself.
It's the same, like anything. If you're working in a job and you're trying to do something on your own, you probably will get it done. But if there's two or three doing the same task, or working on the same thing, you'll come up with ideas of doing it more efficiently, and someone go, yeah, that's good, but what about if we do it this way? It's like, that's logical.
Although, what Bob Lazar said, he said the gravity engine that they have or had in Area 51 in the 80s, by the way, it's actually Area S4, which is a subsection of Area 51 that he was in, but he was saying it's literally as if you gave a nuclear reactor to someone in the Stone Age and said, figure that out.
Yeah.
He said, we are looking at this thing, if we had 100 years, we won't figure it out. We're just not going to. It's just so much more advanced than anything they know.
I bet you if they gave it to a ton of people.
Well, I mean, if you have any chance of progressing with it, and especially the metallurgy side of it, then, although if it's layered at the atomic level kind of thing, it's just never going to get anywhere.
Fancy 3D printer.
Yeah, literally, yeah. But
or the printer we'll have in 10 years.
I think what's going to happen is, by the sounds of things, like for example, Congress are, well, there's some the most senior guy in the Senate has put a bill forward that he's hoping will be passed that will kind of give amnesty. And the phrasing of this bill, I'm not going to look it up and read it because it's boring when you just read a big long wall of text, but basically the phrasing is saying very specifically alien ships, alien bodies, and if anyone who's been damaged or hurt by these alien things are not covered by this kind of thing, they're basically saying you have, I think it's 180 days to come forward and acknowledge that you have it, and 300 days to admit where you got it from, kind of thing. Ultimately, they're saying we want to know anyone in a public agency or a company, a private company, whatever. If you have alien stuff, we need to know about it. Tell us about it, and there would be no repercussions, no prosecutions, because they are literally acting in violation of the law right now because they're operating on some secret budget that nobody knows. And I do wonder sometimes how much of this has been put in place, in the Cold War that's still there, and maybe nobody knows about it now, kind of thing.
Threadstone.
It's weird, but yeah. So anyway, in the next year, if anyone has spaceships, they're going to have to come out and say it.
Yeah.
Allegedly.
Now, it makes me think that a couple of things. One, Independence Day was far more realistic than I initially thought. And two, so was Men in Black. The whole, it seems to me they're saying, this thing was printed at an atomic level. What if that was given to a company and they looked at it and went, okay, we can't do this. This is incredibly complex stuff. But what an idea, 3D printing something. What if we were able to just get a plastic and print it in normal? Let's try that. That'll be the simplest version of this. And suddenly, now we patent that, sell it to whoever makes 3D printers, and they make their billions. Same with the meteorology, the metal part of it. We can't do carbon fiber. And that's Men in Black. That's literally the story.
I literally wonder, how much stuff do we have now? Yeah. If this is real at all,
mobile phones.
How much came from that? Yeah.
How much stuff comes from, because I know for a fact, I know, or I think, that technology we have now and we take for granted and is the latest and greatest gadget. I'm pretty sure that the military had it 10 years ago.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
And the SR-71 story is why I think that. They had that it was so advanced way back when that, and I'm sure that they're able to control what we see to the extent that if you see a soldier kitted for war, he's about to go out there, we don't see him fully kitted for war. We see the stuff we're allowed to see, and then they turn off the cameras and these guys put on the rest of their gadgets and away they go. Because you often see them and they seem to be missing clip-on bits of them that seem to have stuff that could go there, but they don't have anything there. So I think the extra clip-on bits that they use that we don't see. But we'll see a version of it. We'll see a civilian version of it because I think that the companies that make them for the military could be, if we want to go down the rabbit hole, they get this technology from Roswell, say, and they look at it and they go, we can't do this, but we can do this. And they make it, and the military, the American government and the military give it to them. So we made it for the military first. And then they're 10 years, and now you're allowed to make a civilian version of it.
But the thing, though, as well, you wonder, maybe nothing came out of these things. Because if it is like a Stone Age person having a nuclear reactor. Because I think what Bob Lazar was saying is they get some scientists and task them with trying to figure this stuff out and see how far they get. And then they just box it away for another 10 years and don't even do anything. It's not like somebody's constantly working on this thing for 80 years and still haven't, they just go so far and say, okay, we're not doing anything. Let's wait for science to catch up a bit more and try again.
Or maybe they just go, okay, we the secret budget gives you $2 million. And they go, okay, let's try this one. We haven't tried this in a while.
But
they throw $2 million at it. Doesn't work. Mothball it again and wait till we get another bit of a budget line.
But another interesting angle of this whole kind of UFO sightings type thing is, again, we were talking about, isn't it weird how, are they always out in the sea and we're only capturing them on film when they're near military stuff, because those military stuff happen to be looking. Because the truth is, they could be everywhere and just nobody's looking. And I mean, definitely under the sea. See, this is another interesting thing about it. Originally, the whole UFO thing was they're in the sky. But there's one clear film caught of a UFO that goes into the water. And again, there's nothing we have that could do that, and especially not at the speed that it was going at. So it makes you think, oh, maybe, maybe if UFOs have a secret base or are hanging around Earth, and it does seem like they're flying from space all the way down and going into the sea.
And of course, most of our planet is water.
Yeah,
and
it's a good place to hide.
And most of it is unexplored.
That's the thing, nobody's looking.
And can't be explored for the simple reason that it's so deep and so big.
But I was going to say, the interesting thing about UFOlogy is there's something that happened in 1966 in America. And again, this is one of those things, because a lot of this kind of UFO stuff, they have crashed spaceships, they have bodies, that's going into the speculative area. Do you believe this David Grusch guy and all that? I don't know, right? But this is something that's going back onto the footing of, well, this happened, it's documented and it's real, and there's no doubt about it. A UFO appeared over a military base in 1966 in America, and a beam came out of it, and it was a nuclear launch base, and all the 10 nuclear missiles went all offline. And they had to be manually brought back online or something. So it's like, what the hell was going on there? And the fact that it interacted with the most highest confidential, sensitive military armament that the most powerful military nation on earth had, and just turned it off. That's weird. And again, it was one of those things, we don't know what it is, just kind of, don't worry about it. And another thing that happened, I think this happened in England, about 2 or 3 years later, a UFO came over a military base, and the launch sequence was initiated, and they had to manually turn it off. They turned it off with 30 seconds to go. It nearly launched a nuke. Now, I don't know what the hell it would have been trying to do, or was it just poking around and did something by mistake? I don't know. But it's interesting that they always seem to be around military bases or military stuff. And if you go back to Roswell, in 1945, Roswell was the only nuclear air wing on Earth. That was where they launched the plane flew out of that dropped the nukes on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. So,
really,
yeah, a spaceship allegedly crashed in Roswell in the 40s. Incidentally, that was the only nuclear kind of base on the planet at the time.
Wow.
So that's interesting. And it's interesting that 90 days after Roswell, if I can find it here, there was a very interesting line that I heard. That was when they started the CIA. The Air Force and the military wing were merged, and there was some intelligence committee was formed all immediately 3 months after Roswell allegedly happened. So there's just a lot around that's like,
And of course, the Manhattan Project and the nuclear stuff with that, they did a lot of they blew the hell out of the American deserts and stuff.
Oh,
they used islands out in the Pacific as well, didn't they? Bikini Atoll and stuff like that. I think,
That's where the bikini came from.
So my new theory that I just formed this second is that there was an intelligent life living in our seas all this time, and we just pissed them off by blowing the shit
maybe
out of their environment.
Well, what I do wonder is, because I guess the question I would have for you is, I guess, for starters, I'm presuming both of you are not convinced, nope, there's still no aliens.
No, you've changed my mind.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, because I just find it...
Kind of, yeah. It's fascinating and it's interesting and it's definitely given me more to think about. But yeah, I want to believe.
It's just that there's so much... If you took any one instance of all of these things,
you could write it off.
You could write it off.
Yeah.
But when it's all stacked up on top of each other, and by the way, you could be talking for 10 hours on this topic. Yeah. There's just so much evidence or stuff that would kind of make you think. That when it's all stacked up on top of each other, you're like, geez, that's just too much to ignore. And it, you just kind of...
By the way, if anything happens to me in the next few days, it's the mare people.
The mare people?
Mare, as in the sea.
Oh, yeah.
Merfolk.
It's like the guy with the wings on his ankles.
Merfolk, yeah, one of them guys, yeah. Just check my house, see if there's salt water around there and things like that, just,
Look, Mart, do you have more stuff on that? Or
well, I've turned, but I don't want to go into all because I'm conscious of, we could be here all night.
Yeah. So here's what I think.
Mm-hmm.
If there was ever an episode that we did that has a second episode of it, this is it.
Several of our topics have had... We could definitely get another episode out of it. But yeah, this is definitely
one. I had taken notes and stuff. I haven't literally touched one of the notes I took.
Sorry, I totally hijacked this.
No, it's cool. It's cool that there's so much stuff there.
Yeah.
But I would say in the next 5 years, there will be some kind of acknowledgement. Okay, fine, UFOs are real and they're alien. And we know they are and we don't know what they are. I think. Because if you think from the 47 until now, which is the real when the UFOlogy really started proper.
Modern
In
ufology.
all that time, there's always been kind of hiding things. But in the last 6 years, and especially in the last maybe since the pandemic, funny enough, it was in the pandemic that they passed legislation to force the Pentagon. Oh, I didn't say that. In the middle of the pandemic, the government were passing a bill. Okay, we're going to give people free money because it's a pandemic and we need to pay people to stay at home. So they tacked on, and while you're at it, Pentagon, you have 60 days to give us, or 90 days to give us a report. So that was kind of passed through in the middle of the pandemic, along with the pandemic kind of a, what do you call it, work from home money bill. And the Pentagon gave them a report basically saying, fine, we were researching aliens and UFOs, and we were looking into it. And they admitted they had 144 cases that now the Pentagon's standard for something worth investigating is like super high. Again, it's only military personnel captured by credible witnesses and cameras and all that kind of stuff. They had 144 of those cases, and they managed to explain one, and the other 143, they're like, we just don't know what it is. Right. So like that David Fravor thing that I'm talking about, that's one of like over 100 other cases where the evidence is stacked so high that it's just kind of, that senior military officials in the Pentagon just have to take it seriously. And they released like a 3-page version of that report to the public, but I heard the version that the Senate got was 90 pages, but it's definitely more. So there's so much we're still not being told, but it's just, there's such a real interest and momentum in the American government right now to actually push this into the light, purely because of, hey, wait, if this is real, what are we doing about it from a defense point of view? Yeah. And secondly, if this is real, well, like, we're paying people money. Who? Where's the money coming from? Where is it going? And what? And allegedly, the cost of keeping these things secret is actually costing more than the money that they're actually spending on the research of these things. So if you could take away the secrecy aspect, and I think at this stage, because remember the X-Files, the cigarette smoking man would come up and he'd be like, burn the bodies, hide the evidence and all. The people can't handle it. I'm telling you now, and by the way, this is how I predict it's going to go, right? We're never going to see aliens land on the White House lawn. I don't think we'll see aliens, right? Not in our lifetime. But what's going to happen is a official revelation will be just declared, probably by America first, and then other governments will come along. Although there are, like France is one country that has an officially government-funded alien UFO research group agency. Yeah, but most countries just don't. And the thing is, most countries just are not looking. So this crap's flying around and literally no one is even looking at it. And when someone captures it or something, who do you go with that data? Nowhere. There's nowhere to go with it. So America has got to the point where they're going to say, I predict in the next few years even, they're going to declare, okay, it is, however way they're going to phrase it, they're not going to say aliens, but they'll say, non-human technology that is there. They'll acknowledge it in some kind of a mouthy way to say it's real.
To put a point on
and
it,
it's
do you
there.
think is going to happen in
before
2030?
Yeah, definitely. But what'll happen is news cycles will blow up for 24 hours and then no one will give a shit. Yeah. It's like the opposite of the X-Files where they had to keep it secret because people couldn't handle it.
They'll announce it at the same time as they want to do something much more clandestine.
For example,
sneak it through the thing. Because I think that's what our government do. They do a big, look at the thing, and then they quietly pass a bill
that they know was going to be unpopular when the news cycle is. Surely they'll do that as well. Yeah. But I think that's how I predict it's going to go. But then once that happens, okay, there's a thing. And
people will move on.
Nobody will care.
The people will move on, because that's our attention span is not good for anything like that.
Well, that was kind of like mind-blowing of an episode.
It really was. It was fascinating. I really, really enjoyed that.
I don't know if I'm convinced, but not only because there's here's the thing. If what you're saying is true, then yeah.
Well, I can tell you this much, right? I haven't exaggerated anything. I haven't made anything up.
No, I genuinely
there
don't
are
think
things like, for example, David Grusch sorry, I don't know if I pointed this out. He's the intelligence guy who came out and said, yes, we have spaceships and we have bodies and all this. Those claims are so crazy, but he admits himself, he didn't see any bodies. He didn't see any spaceships. None of his information is firsthand. It's all other, when he was working in the UFO researching agency, he heard all these things from other senior officials and he went to the Senate with it. But this is what's interesting about that. He testified in front of the Senate for like 12 hours or something. So now they are going to subpoena all these other people and say, come on in here, tell us what you know. They don't necessarily need to go to the public and ruin their careers by spilling the beans to the public, but they're going to have to say to the Senate, like, this is what makes me interested in this. It looks like the government in America are serious about, yeah.
Is this why Trump started the space police force thing?
I actually don't know. I don't know. And the
He
weird
found out stuff and he was like, shit, we should have.
see, this is
But
the
this
thing.
is why his tiny brain was able to do. We need a
Well,
military
the question
thing.
is asked: who does the president? If there are aliens, bodies in space, does the president know?
Yeah.
And I think the general consensus amongst, I guess, UFOologists is
No.
sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. There's a guy, Christopher Mellon. He's the kind of senior Pentagon guy who worked with Lou Elizondo to get these 3 videos leaked, and he's kind of he doesn't know for a fact, but he's kind of thinking, some presidents probably would be told, but probably some that wouldn't be, because if you were to tell a new president who's just in the door, here's all the things you need to know, he would literally be reading briefs for 6 months solid.
Yeah.
And out of a 4-year term, that's a significant percent. So basically you tell him what he needs to know, and he might ask about something and you tell him. But allegedly Bill Clinton was really interested in wanting to know about UFOs. And he said himself, when I went in, first thing I asked, where's the aliens? Where's the spaceships? And he was told, but this is what he said. And he said, and I was told that they weren't there. But then
Yeah.
obviously,
That's
if you're
what he's gonna
this is
say.
what you're going to say, yeah, exactly. But I would say Trump wouldn't have known anything, and I know for a fact, knowing Trump's personality, he wouldn't have given a shit to even ask one way or the other.
Probably wouldn't.
And I'd say he wanted to set up Space Force because there's like the Air Force, there's the ground force, and he wanted to be, I'm the president who invented the new wing of the military, the Space Force. He would want to be the first one
Space Force
to do
is
it.
needed anyway because eventually the Russians and the Chinese and the Indians will all have their own space forces, and somebody's going to control space eventually, and somebody's going to control the moon, and somebody's going to control Mars.
150 billion for the International Space Station.
Ooh.
So it's going to have to be something with a few quid.
Yeah, I want to know how much the James Webb Telescope costs now.
I
That
know,
you.
yeah. That's
Anyway, that'll be
surely
over
there's
next
some way of finding that out.
I think, will we wrap it up there?
Yeah,
I'm
kind
going to
of-
call
that's a good
this
spot.
the first definite
This is
part 1.
Part 1.
This
UFOs.
is definitely part
part
1.
Yeah.
Because I have loads of stuff on. I think myself, as Barry said, we misunderstood the brief.
Totally.
I was like, I have loads of stuff on aliens.
My summation was very simply that the truth may be out there, but the odds are we'll never find out.
Actually, there's a summation that Sophie found. Where is it? Oh yeah, no, I think she found this on Instagram or somewhere. But I'll finish with this. Or do you have anything
No,
else?
I'm done. I've talked out.
So, what Sophie said is like, not believing in aliens is like taking a spoonful of water from the ocean and saying there are no whales or sharks in the ocean because there are none in my spoon.
Yeah, that's...
Exactly, but I think aliens is a whole other conversation because
Yeah,
I'm saying there's
100%,
SETI,
it's a
the
whole-
Drake equation.
Yeah.
There's like the dark forest theory, and there's all these other
Dark
ideas of. But
Well,
that's
that's
a
for another
specifically
episode.
alien
Yeah.
thing for another day.
I have to leave that.
Yeah, yeah. But I mean, again, even NASA is making such an effort to look out in space looking for life, and it's like, well, wait a minute, what about literally just here on Earth?
It's in the ocean, man.
Yeah, and actually, there's another one which I'll touch on, and then we'll talk about it in the aliens episode. There's a Harvard scientist called Avi Loeb, and he just came across some data of an object. I think it was the first object that was from outside our solar system that came into our solar system, and it just flew right by the Earth. And by the time I think they saw it in October 2013, but by the time they saw it, it was already past Earth, flying away. So at that stage, and it was going so fast, you're never going to catch up with it. So basically, telescopes looked at it and all that kind of stuff, but he looked at the data and said, that isn't a natural formation. It's flat, it's shiny, it's metallic, all this kind of stuff. And he's kind of saying, clearly that was some kind of an extraterrestrial object. It might have been like a Coke can that somebody threw out of a window, but from
at half light speed.
You know, just the fact of it being kind of a non-natural formation and it came from outside our solar system is hugely significant. Now, at the time that it was spotted, it was already flying away, so they didn't get good data on it or anything. And mostly all the astronomical community were like, idiot, that's definitely some kind of rock or something, just with a weird shine on it. Yeah. You know,
it's a shiny rock.
You've got to, as a scientist, you've got to, what's the word, Occam's razor kind of thing, the whole lot of it. But Avi Loeb is convinced, going on about it all the time, that it was. And again, he's not saying it's an alien, it's a this, it's that. All he's saying is, well, maybe it was. We don't know. And maybe we should be looking next time. So when something comes from outside, we can actually see it before it's on the way out the door. Yeah. And maybe then we'd have a chance to see what it is. So again, it's like the same thing.
Again, it means if there are aliens, they have to get a bit more careful now. Because they're if they are there, they're definitely tracking our communications. They know that. They know that story. And they're like, shit, James, what the fuck are you at, man?
Yeah.
You drove too close to Earth.
I'm convinced, though, that they're not trying to hide too hard. Yeah. Definitely. Because surely if they wanted to hide, they would.
Well, maybe it's like you said earlier, maybe it's just some guys goofing off.
Yeah.
The guy's like, I'm going to do a drive-by on Earth. Oh, don't, man. They're getting better with that tracking shit now. They'll see you. Go, nah, I drive too fast. Then I'm going to go down and go and do some donuts in the Pacific.
Yeah.
It's like a big car park for them. It's huge.
Yeah.
So I think we'll wrap it up there.
Let's wrap it up there.
Already?
Yep. Is there anything else you want to add, Mert?
No.
Thank you.
Totally talked out. I have like a ton of stuff that I didn't say, but I just really think
Episode 2.
Yeah, exactly.
Episode 2.
Part 2 for that. Thanks to everyone for listening. If you've listened this long, thank you so much for listening. Throw some comments. If you're watching on YouTube.
The truth is out there. So
that's it, guys. We will talk to you later on.
Next time.
Next time.
Boom.